So I would like to call back to order the Board of Education meeting for May 16th. We have our Pledge of Allegiance. It will be led by the Student Advisory Council.
Hi, my name is Ariana. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you for having us. We are the Student Advisory Council for SUSD, and we're here to present on our initiatives for this year. My name is Hannah Jacobson, and I'm this year's SAC president. SAC is a representative body for students working in SUSD, and it works to strengthen youth voice. We're comprised of an executive board, a student board member, youth council members, and also adult advisors. SAC strengthens youth voice by collaborating on district-wide policy and initiatives and working to increase student involvement in decision-making. Some of the ways that we do this are by holding monthly youth council meeting and reviewing SUSD policies and practices, and also working to train students in youth advocacy and helping them voice their concerns. The first committee that we'll be presenting is the Student Rights Committee.
Hello, my name is Maggie Guidry.
And I'm Ariana Rea, and we are the committee chairs for the Student Rights Committee. So what you guys see right now is a brochure that was made by the former student board member, Izzy Gardone. And as a committee, we've run into a lot of issues when it comes to having our brochures on campuses. A lot of administrations feel that students would take advantage of the brochures and kind of throw them in teachers' faces. And while we understand that students might act inappropriately with their brochures, we also feel that it's extremely important that students are aware of their rights as students. And I know personally I've missed school in the past and had the absence excused, yet teachers wouldn't let me make up the assignments. However, Education Code 48205 and SCUSD Policy 6154 states that this is a violation of my rights as a student. And the committee as a whole has also noticed that a lot of administration assigns lunch detention without giving the option of serving it at lunch or after school. And this is also a violation of Article 3, subsection 352. Sorry. Teachers also repeatedly mark down students' grades in PE for not dressing, even though they participate on a daily basis. They still mark down their grades. And Education Code 49066 says this is also illegal.
All right, this is a picture of our student rights poster. It was created this year, and it consists of each poster will consist of two commonly violated rights. It won't be the same rights each time on each poster, but basically it'll contain two commonly violated rights to grab the attention of students. And then at the bottom we have a QR code, and the QR code leads to the electronic copy of our student rights brochure. Oh, this is a video that we've prepared for you guys. Our committee members couldn't all be here today, and they wanted to prepare a little message for you.
It is essential that students are aware of their rights so they avoid potentially harmful situations.
As students, we understand that most rights are violated by misinformation.
And we realize how important our rights are by not abusing them.
Our brochures and poster series are not to impose power over adults,
but instead to empower students by informing them of their legal rights.
On behalf of the Student Advisory Council, we would like to thank the board for watching this video.
So why should our posters and brochures be on all campuses? Right now, not a lot of students know their rights. We've asked committee members who have asked their peers, and we've also done a few Facebook polls, and not a lot of students know about their rights. So our posters and brochures will act as a tool to provide students with their full and legal rights, because students should know their rights in order to avoid potentially harmful situations.
Okay. One of the concerns that administration has with our brochures is the possibility that students will abuse them. Our posters and brochures are meant to inform students of their legal rights, not to impose power over teachers and administration. Students realize that abusing the brochures will result in having them confiscated and taken off campuses. Students need to know their rights in order to adequately protect themselves, but more importantly, they deserve to know their rights.
Our recommendation to the school board is to mandate that all student right brochures and posters be available on all SCUSD campuses, because this is a huge issue facing students and they need to know their rights.
All right.
Next, we have the Budget Cuts Committee.
Hi, my name is Matthew Seytoun.
Hi, my name is Ryan Seytoun.
Hello, my name is Andrew Maloof.
And my name is Margarita Kowalczyk. I'm a junior at West Campus, and I'm also part of this committee.
A big issue that has been brought to many students in the Sacramento City Unified School District is janitorial issues. Our schools are unhealthy. One example is classrooms are only cleaned once a month and twice if we are lucky, which makes it very unsanitary for students and staff.
As students in the committee, we've begun to put together a volunteer packet that would include a cover letter that you guys should have. And the packet also will include volunteer hours with district letterhead to be signed off for approval that goes back to sites for all students who need volunteer hours.
We began working on a cover letter, which each of you have, and I will be reading it. To whom may it concern? As students of the Youth Council, we would like to bring to your attention a solution to an issue that we feel should be addressed. The cleanliness of our school has been a significant concern for many students and staff members. We understand that due to current budget cuts, certain aspects of this problem may be beyond the control of the administrators. Therefore, we have constructed a solution model that may be implemented with ease. We propose implementing a voluntary program in which students gain volunteer hours for helping clean their school after school. Taking into consideration the amount of students who are in search of volunteer opportunities, we feel that such a program will be successful and instrumental in contributing to the cleanliness of our school. It is a dually beneficial notion as it would not only help our school, but at the same time it would allow students to be more involved in their community. Furthermore, due to the increase of competition for college admission, extra activities such as volunteer work will look great in their college apps. We have applied for a community giving grant from we have applied for a community giving grant of $250,000 from Walmart, and we are still waiting for their response.
What we're asking of the board is to consider using this program across the entire district, especially in the high schools, where, of course, all of our students are striving to go to college, gain acceptance, and we are mindful of potential issues with custodial unions, but we're asking the board to please consider our program as a form of students helping their own schools. And since we all know putting children first, just like in our posters all around, it's a district policy, yet our schools aren't clean, they aren't healthy, and it would be unsafe to SCUSD students. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, and our next committee is the Student Health Committee.
Hello, my name is Valencia Scott.
Again, my name is Hannah.
And my name's Katrina, and we all form the Student Health Committee, or we are chairs of the Student Health Committee. The Student Health Committee is comprised of a diverse group of students who are concerned for the health and well-being of themselves and for other SUSD students. So far, with the support of the Coordinator of Health Services, Pam Whipple, and others, the Student Health Committee has begun looking through and analyzing SUSD health policies. The Student Health Committee has also designed a survey as means of getting a district-wide student opinion on the comprehensiveness of our sexual health education. The Student Health Committee is in the process of gathering the most prevalent factual information in order to compile it into a student health flyer.
The major concerns of the Student Health Council is that we noticed the Sacramento County is ranked third in the state for STIs in the 15 to 24-year-old population. Furthermore, we also noticed that the comprehensive sexual education is offered inconsistently within the school district, and the SUSD family life and sex education policy is outdated and does not encompass the scope of issues facing students within SUSD in 2013. Furthermore, we also noticed that the policy had not been updated since 2001, which was 12 years ago.
There are many specific cases of outdated, biased, and non-inclusive language within the current policy around family life and sex education. For example, within the policy, it talks about the ethical and moral context of language, which are, of course, loaded words that promote only a certain lifestyle. It also says that sexual education courses should stress that students should abstain from sexual intercourse until they are ready for marriage, which again is a really loaded statement that promotes only a certain lifestyle and certain values over others. It also says that these classes should teach honor and respect for monogamous heterosexual marriage, which again is promoting a certain lifestyle and leaving out a huge percentage of the SUSD student population by pretty much leaving out all LGBTQ students from these sexual education courses that are currently offered.
For our recommendations to the board, we would like to request that there be revisions made to the current family life and sex education policy, and that the revisions be made with student input. Furthermore, we would like to ask that in order to accurately represent the diversity in our schools, the revision include making the policy more inclusive to the LGBTQ community. Thank you.
Our next steps for all initiatives, the Student Advisory Council would like to work with the appropriate departments to investigate these issues over the remainder of the school year, and also create action plans to establish next steps, which would continue efforts beyond this school year.
Oh, wait. No. I think, but yeah, let's present the certificates, and then we can take board questions. We have Board Member Hanson.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the responsibility that you've placed on us to follow up, I think, with some of your recommendations. I just would like to volunteer myself to help with a couple other board members if anyone else would like to work on these issues. I think they're timely and they deserve our attention and action. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Very much appreciate it.
Member Pritchett.
Thank you. I just want to say what remarkable work that you young students have done. You are just amazing on the way that you articulate and have brought to the board on the things that are important in our schools. You should be very proud of yourselves for the work that you've done. And I as well would be more than happy to help you guys with the action items that you have set forth.
We have Student Board Member Yee.
I would like to make a motion asking Board President Cuneo to create a joint committee of the SAC Budget Cuts Committee and the unions to discuss potential solutions and orientate a volunteer program as brought to our attention this evening.
Okay, so
That.
So because it's not on the agenda, we haven't complied with the applicable laws, what I recommend you can do, can you email me the what you want me to put on the agenda, and I would be happy to do that for the next board meeting, and then have an agenda item specifically on that. Is that fair enough? Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And then we have Ms. Cummings.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation from the superintendent, and we are incredibly proud of all the work that SAC does, and I'll make sure the superintendent does receive your concerns and that they are addressed.
Yeah, I can just echo all my colleagues' comments. I was incredibly impressed by not only the presentation, but the kind of thoughtfulness and you can see that you guys are very involved, number one, in your schools, but you can also see the passion you have for the district and the schools you're in, and that you're here to make it a better place for not only yourselves, but all students. And that just shone through in what you did tonight and the recommendations you made. So I thought the recommendations were timely, they were considered, and they were important. So there are things that we will definitely follow up on, hopefully starting also with our student board members' resolution coming in a couple weeks. So again, I appreciate all the hard work you guys do for Sac City and the schools that you're in and the kids in our district. So moving on, this meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel, on the Comcast and SureWest cable systems. Today's meeting will be replayed Sunday, May 19th at 9 a.m. and Monday, May 20th at noon on Channel 14 and will be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located in the back of the community room and give it to our Chief Communications Officer, Mr. Gabe Ross, to my right. Prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation, please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Responses to reasonable questions by the public will be posted on the district website prior to the next board meeting. Please limit comments during public comment to items not listed on the agenda. If you are found to be commenting on an item that is on the agenda, you'll be asked to defer until your item comes up on the agenda. Also, as we would also have a 2-minute limit, obviously, on the public comments on any of the agenda items. I have grown somewhat lax in my rulemaking around the 2-minute, and so I just wanted to give everybody, sufficient heads up. I will be a little more vigilant around the 2 minutes tonight. We'll let you have about 5-10 more seconds to wrap up once the 2-minute hits. I really don't want to cut anyone off or silence microphones, but for the good of everybody, to allow everybody the time to comment, I am going to be a little more vigilant tonight. Also, please turn off all cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate. 5.0, announcement of action taken in closed session.
None, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Item 6.0, agenda adoption. We have Vice President Wu.
Thank you, President Cuneo. I would like to have items 9.1G and 9.1H, the approval to submit class size waiver request for grades kindergarten for fiscal year 2013-14, and also for grades 1 through 3 for the same period, pulled from the consent calendar and move to a hearing item. And then I'm informed that staff would like to postpone item 10.1 to a future board meeting date.
Second.
I second.
We have a motion by Vice President Wu to approve the agenda with the following amendments, pulling 9.1G as well as 9.1H from the agenda to be considered and voted upon separately, and striking 10.1. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have an agenda. Item 7.0, public comment. Mr. Ross.
We have 20 comments from 7.0. The first 4 comments are from New Long, Eris C. Moreno, Pamela Jimenez, and Arthur Ailman.
Good evening, board members, colleagues, family and community members. I am New Leung, School Family Community Partnerships Trainer with the Office of Family and Community Engagement. This year we had 23 participants in our Leadership Academy. The participants in this year's cohort included parents, staff, and community members. This year's program was focused on collaborative leadership through equity and access. The mission of the Academy is to deepen the participants' understanding of the educational system, learn strategies and tools to better advocate for their child's education, build their confidence and leadership skills through the following 3 modules. 1 was school system and structure, 2 was cultural proficiency, and 3 is advocacy and influence. As part of the program, the participants completed a culminating project that focused on a real-life topic or issue that parents, students, community members, and our teachers are facing. Just like in the English language assessment claims in Common Core under research and inquiry, it states students can engage in research and inquiry to investigate topics and to analyze and integrate and present information. Similar to the ELA claim in Common Core, the participants in the Leadership Academy had hands-on experience in carrying out their team projects by researching, inquiring, investigating, analyzing, and integrating the data and information they found. The skills they have acquired in the program will benefit them in the near future when they assist their children in their research projects. The participants were divided into 7 teams. Each team represented a trustee area. Topics included engaging new families, chronic absenteeism, health and wellness, school site councils, GATE programs, and how parent involvement can impact program improvement. The last session of the program was Monday, April 8th, where each team presented their topic, research they found, provided possible solutions, and described how their role as a parent or community member will take action in reaching a positive solution with their school sites. Tonight is a voluntary opportunity for those that have chosen to share their presentation with you. Of the 7 teams in the program, we have 1 team here tonight who represents Area 4, who will present their topic, school safety.
Hi, my name is Pamela Jimenez, and is your school safe for your child? Take a look around. The best ways to get a sense of the school climate to go to the school. You. Always be sure to make an appointment with the principal before you visit at the school. After you spend time there, ask yourself these questions. Do you feel comfortable on the school grounds? Do you feel that there are accurate precaution in place and prevent authorized individual for entering the school? Do the students and staff seem to be respectful and engaged with each other? Is the campus tidy? Do you see excuses amount of litter on the ground and in the hallways or in the classroom? Do you see signs of vandalism and graffiti? What is the condition of the restroom and cafeteria? Ask questions. While you were on campus, talk to the principal, teachers, and students. Ask students if they feel safe in school, if they feel safe on the way to and from school. Do students get the feeling the adults in school community knew them and care about them? What do teachers and students think about some of the program or the philosophies that the school has established and deal with the school safety issue? The physical conditions of the campus can also tell us a lot about the attitude of the people who spend their days there. Discipline and policies. In the past, many schools have taken special message strengthen discipline at school. You will want to learn about procedure and policy in your school and has adopted and created staff environment, students and staff and questions to ask include.
Ma'am,
Is there
if you
a-
could follow up, ma'am, or could you wrap up, please?
Okay, it's
I'm
going
sorry.
to be
Go ahead.
Okay.
Give me 10 seconds.
Is there a dress code? What are its privilege? Do students wear uniforms? Does the school have code of conduct? How do students learn about discipline and policies? Are students involved in setting rules of an inspection of behavior? If so, how? Does the school use metal detector or employ security guards? You may also want to investigate your school district policy on weapons. Many schools have become very strict in regarding
Thank
to
you, ma'am.
this critical issue.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eric Moreno, and I have two children that attend Joseph Bonheim. When numbers don't add up, while many parents ask to see data about the suspensions and expulsions at a school, it is difficult to draw quick or simple conclusions from these numbers. A high rate of suspensions and expulsions may indicate that a school is more serious than most about cracking down on discipline problems to maintain an environment suitable for teaching and learning, or perhaps it means that a school is relatively quick to send away students who pose modest challenges to authority. If you're concerned about a number that seems high or unusually low, you want to ask the principal about it. Remember, statistics are not answers in themselves. Rather, there are also useful tools to help you discover the right questions to ask. I wanted to make sure that we were choosing the right school. I won't list the names of schools I visited, but what I want to tell you is that 4 of the 5 schools I did visit had no one at the front door, nor was there anyone at the front desk. I simply walked in. No one buzzed me in. No one greeted me. I had to find the main office myself. Now, this is not to say that those schools are in the wrong. They have an open door policy for a reason. Like most schools, I believe the principal and teachers of that school did their very best to protect those children. I am merely listing ideas that can help us protect our schools. And I'm going to pass it on to Arthur Alamon. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. As far as the safety goes, we had come up with some proposals for the district in safety issues. And one of them is to set up see-through glass doors for all schools, main entrance, to be buzzed in when sound. That way, they can personnel coming into the school can be ID'd before you walked in. Also, that all the security cameras be installed in all entryways, hallways, schoolyards, and monitored by the front office personnel. That walkie-talkies be distributed to all teachers, especially yard duty teachers. 2 teachers of every school to be trained with a minimum of 40 hours in weapons. Not so much how to use them, but enables them to ID them to be able to make a proper report, police report. Also, more training drills for students, teachers, to be with the police department and fire department be included. And that is our proposal. But us as parents, here's what we're teaming up together to do. We are going to try and get a group of parents to work as security staff. We also have talked to the PTA to raise funds to get to invest in security items such as cameras, maze, whatever security material that we need.
You could finish up, sir.
One last, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Finish up.
But one thing is that the main front office to be consistent in signing every visitor in the schools. Thank you very much.
Arthur, thank you.
Our next 4 comments are from Louis Morton, Jessica Arriaga, Grace Trujillo, and Maria Rodriguez.
Good evening, board members. My name is Louis Morton, and I'm here tonight to make you aware of what I believe to be a very toxic situation in the Sacramento School District. I have reason to believe that the district human resources department and some within it have conspired with the president of SIE Union to hire his son to a position he was not qualified to hold. My allegation may be just the tip of the iceberg. If true, the entire system of hiring on the basis of merit may be in jeopardy. The situation is further compounded when one learns that the young man in question is not working at the job he was hired for. However, he continues to be paid at the higher rate. As might be expected, this situation does not sit well with workers that I've talked with. I don't have to tell you that this is not fair if it is true or ethical. This young man has proven to be someone who is not capable based upon the number of transfers he's had from one school to another, and these were not transfers for promotions. Why are hardworking district employees paying union dues if the people that they're paying the dues to are not involved in trying to help them redress wrongs? In closing, a brief chronology might be in order. When I first learned of the problem, I contacted the head of the district's HR department, and I was assured that the matter would be investigated thoroughly. What I did not know is that the person assigned to investigate is a longtime friend of the person being investigated, the union leader. I contacted the union to ask if this matter could be looked into. No reply. The same for the union headquarters in Oakland. And finally, board members, before retiring, I spent about 30 years as a broadcast journalist in Los Angeles after attending Columbia Graduate School of Journalism.
If you could finish up,
please.
please.
I need to tell you that this story writes itself, and I hope that somebody will do some investigating and maybe find out what the facts are.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, board members. My name is Jessica Arriaga. I have 2 students that attend Joseph Bonheim. And I'm here today to go over some problems that I had experienced with the after school and before school notification. Due to time restraints, I've sent all of you personal emails regarding the issues. My main concern is that there's still parents out there that don't know transportation. They don't know that Earl Warren's not being provided busing. They don't know that the change of the times for schools and if they need before school programs. It's May 15th. There's really no reason that parents do not have this information. Shortly after I sent you the email, I do want to applaud the district for expeditiously getting translated forms. As of 2 p.m. today, Joseph Bonheim got a delivery with translated forms in other languages so that parents who cannot read and fill out the forms in English have the opportunity to have it in the language that they can understand. But that's 2 p.m. Thursday, and the forms are due back Friday. That poses a problem for me because we're not giving them sufficient time they don't have the week that I had to fill out these forms because they just got the forms in their language today. So that definitely is a concern of mine. And I know that Board Member Hanson, you've indicated a couple of times that you wanted to hear from other parents. I encourage all of you to reach out to Eduardo Aguilar, who was fortunately enough to be present at Joseph Bonheim, who had personal experience with a parent who didn't know that there was not transportation provided, a parent who was confused, a parent who said, it's just happening so fast, we don't even know what questions to ask. So if you want to challenge me that, no, it's not as bad as I make it, I challenge you to reach out to him, because for the first time, I've seen that. And just to wrap it up, President Cuneo, I do appreciate it. All I'm asking is that on agenda item 9.3 on March 7th, this was what was quoted. The district is committed to compassionately and effectively transitioning students, families, staff impacted by these closures and new schools.
I'm here asking you for that.
Thank you
for
very
all
much.
schools.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Grace Trujillo, members of the board. You know, I always talk about the future and things that impact. I think I spent most of my time in the past talking about going downtown to the Capitol and asking for money to increase the per capita that is given for the children. Luckily, Ms. Jonathan Raymond got involved with the Governor Brown. Now I ask, looking at the budget, my biggest concerns are the bonds as well as the benefits. I think they're going to get larger and larger. One of the key things that I think I mentioned to you, Mr. Hansen, is the fact that we need to look into that. I've been reading articles in the Sacramento Bee saying that costs for healthcare has just gone out the door because nobody's regulating them. Nobody's looking into it. That's the problem that the schools are facing, but that's not just the schools. The PERS is chasing it. Anybody in the state is going to have the same impact, whoever's guaranteeing this. I know I probably think, what is this woman talking about? But you know, it's just the same thing that I was talking about 4 or 5 years ago when I was saying the budget, the tax extension needs to be passed. You know, I'm always projecting the future. And that's one of the biggest things that I always talk to you guys. When you guys look at this budget, there's short-term and long-term. And at the same time, you need to make appropriate decisions because those decisions are going to have a great impact on our schools. So now I ask the board to get involved and find out more about this. I know the only way to change, like for example, in Mexico, it costs $6,000 to have a surgery, whereas here in the United States, it costs $125,000. I wonder why our premiums are going up, because it's not being regulated and it's not being looked upon. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Cuneo, Ms. Cummings, and members of the board. My name is Maria Rodriguez, and this evening I had a speech prepared. I was going to talk about disparity. I was going to talk about irony, but I was going to talk most about hope, the hope that all of us are really in this together for the same end goal of the highest standards for all of our kids. But in talking to my husband about this over the dinner, he broke my heart when he convinced me that there was nothing that I could say that would change any of your minds from where you stand today. And I could explain to you why he told me that, but the words that came to my mind were words from my favorite song, The Boxer by Simon and Garfunkel. A man or woman hears what he or she wants to hear and disregards the rest. So I'm not going to use my time speaking to you. I'm going to speak to the camera, and I'm going to speak to anyone who is out there watching these meetings, as I have been doing when I have to miss them. And I'm going to say to you out there, maybe school closures isn't your issue that you're passionate about, but there is something you're passionate about. And I encourage you to come to this forum and let the board hear what you have to say, because this is a democracy and this is the place. And I'm excited that I have the opportunity to be here. I heard that the mayor of Stockton today opened a meeting and he told everyone in the room, I hope you left your ego at the door. We all need to leave our egos and our pride at the door. If I look like a fool for coming up here, so be it. I am here because I know what I care about. I am an idealist. I'm a kite. My husband, he's the string. He's a realist. I don't know if you know about kites. They can't fly without a string. I know I can't just be an idealist and have anything happen. I'll be a kite that falls to the ground. But he's there to keep me in. So on that note, I'm going to end with a quote that I read that has helped me as I have questioned why I'm here. It's a quote from the Rabbi Hillel, and I asked for it to be passed out to all of you. It says, if I am not for myself, then who will be for me? And if I am only for myself, then what am I? And if not now, when? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next four comments are from Lisa Romero, Ian Arnold, Maria Haro Sullivan, and Cindy Salazar.
Good evening, fellow board members. My name is Lisa Romero. I'm the Vice President of the PTA at Joseph Bonheim. I'd like to come tonight and ask the board to approve Joseph Bonheim as a dependent charter school. We would ask that you put Joseph Bonheim on the agenda and have a 30-day public hearing when the charter is received. And we asked to be approved for this year to open in the fall. This can be done because the board can approve it before 30 days is up and pass the charter onto the Department of Education. I would ask that the board also approve this charter for Joseph Bonheim so that our Head Start program would not have to relocate. Also, our students would be able to stay at Joseph Bonheim and not have to go through the transitions and maintain their high academics for the year and the following year. On another note, I'd like to mention on the after-school programs, we're still having a lot of trouble with overcrowding. And me as being an after-school parent program, future person, I'm not sure if my kids will get in the lottery or they'll get picked. So this is my concern as a working parent. We still have a lot of questions unanswered. Who will get in, who won't? Time's running out. But also another idea I'd just like to bring up to the board is that if a school is closed, then why not use these schools for after-school programs to help with after-school overcrowding? You can have more than one after-school program on campus. You can have multiple of them because a lot of kids don't know where they're going. So if they don't get in a school where they're going to, then what do we do with our kids? Where do we put them? Where do we go? And a lot of our parents are still working parents, and so it's still a concern. So I would ask the board if they would look at that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Cuneo, board members. I don't want to hurt myself again, and staff. Ian Arnold, representing SEIU Local 10-1, your classified employees. I have two issues tonight for you. One is that this year, 189 of your classified employees received layoff notices. That's on top of the 301 classified employees that received layoff notices last year. We and your HR staff have been meeting with as many of those folks as are willing to come in and talk to us. And today, we were in the unfortunate situation of talking to two individuals in particular, both exceptional employees, as are so many. One has been with the district for 17 years. The other has been with the district for 27 years. They're both being told that when they come back to school at the beginning of next year, they have one opportunity and one opportunity only, and that is to take a position of 3 hours, which means they can't pay their mortgages and they won't have any health care. What I need to tell you is that it is incumbent upon the board to provide direction to staff prior to final adoption of the budget. It is up to the board to set priorities and decide what is most important. I have been here before you, and I know the teachers have been before you. We've had some disagreements about how some of the money has been spent in the past. You need to set your priorities and give the priorities to staff before final adoption. Given the time, I'll move on to my next issue, which is last year, we laid off 50% of the custodial staff. Prior to those layoffs, we already know we had fewer custodians than we needed to maintain a district this size. Those custodians have worked this year under a great deal of stress. They've done much more than we could expect of them, trying to make up for the 50% of the staff that are not around anymore, but they're just not able to, get it all done. They're completely stressed out, and this week we heard that they're going to be told they're going to be severely restricted in their ability to take vacation this summer.
You could wrap up, please.
I will wrap up. That's outrageous. You've worked them like dogs for a year, and you're telling them this late, when many of them already have vacation plans, that for emergency reasons, their vacations will be either denied or restricted. It's only an emergency if you didn't create it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Cuneo, Board. Teresa Cummings, not superintendent. I'm Maria Harrell Sullivan. I'm here as the representative, I'm the first vice president of the DAC, And as you are aware, the DAC represents 70 or more school sites. I don't know the exact number, sorry. And the DAC has approved a resolution, Second Chance for Neighborhood School Facilities, which will be following, would be the presentation by DAC representatives. Thank you.
Good evening, Cindy Salazar. The resolution begins, to the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education. We present a resolution regarding a second chance for neighborhood school facilities. Please place this as an action item on your June 13th agenda. It is endorsed by the District Advisory Committee through a vote taken Tuesday, May 14th. This resolution builds on the previous support for keeping neighborhood schools open, shared with the board from many school site PTAs, from the Council of PTAs, the Parallel Black School Board, Sacramento City Teachers Association, Slow Food Sacramento, the Sacramento Coalition to Save Public Education, Hmong Invigorating Politics, and many other groups and individual parents and families.
Our next 4 comments are from Victoria Camargo, Michelle Spies, Dale McKinney, and Cheyenne Camargo.
Hello, I'm Victoria Camargo from Clayton B. Wire Elementary School. The Sacramento City Unified School District of Education Board has received documents and heard oral presentations, including presentations by the public regarding the recommendation wide sizing of school facilities at its regular meetings in March, April, and May. And vigorous neighborhood opposition was expressed at community meetings held at the school sites for the opposing school closures. And the opposed schools or school closures will decrease district-wide and the quality of the curricula and educational programs, which are currently dispersed among most traditional neighborhoods, to the detriment of the learning environment and supports for neighborhood students, especially those with the highest needs of the Sacramento City Unified School District. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Michelle Spies.
You're reading, the last speakers have been, you're reading the resolution, is that what? No, you're not. But the last speaker was, is that what you're doing, is reading the resolution? That was language? Okay. No, I'm just trying to get some clarity. Thanks.
Whereas the proposed school closure serves to increase the ongoing cost of keeping empty schools and facilities, divert funding from the district's educational programs to busing and crossing guards, portable resurrections, and with increasing any deficit gap caused by federal funding cuts, average daily attendance lost, and loss of time, federal funding, and raising costs. And whereas the proposed school closure involved potentially significant walking safety risks, whereas the proposed school closure have significant effects on the environment by increasing the original design and capacity for restrooms and cafeteria and playing fields and other common areas, receiving schools by more than 25% or 10 classrooms, and
yes, this is continuing the resolution.
Yeah, right, okay.
9 and 10, whereas the district's enrollment over the past 3 years has stabilized, including an increasing student population in the primary grades as documented by California Department of Education CDE reports, and whereas the closures will have a cumulative impact and a significant effect on Hispanic and African American plurality neighborhoods, and
Hello, I'm Cheyenne Camargo, also continuing the resolution. Proposition 30, Governor Brown's May budget revision and the expanding economy have significantly improved funding for public education and thus disproportionate effects on Hispanic and African American Plurality schools can now be avoided, and effective ideas, including dependent charters, school clustering, and other options to school closures, have been generated by site transition teams, but need equitable time for consideration.
Our final four comments on 7.0, Edward Camargo, Maddie and Olivia Fenner, Leo Bennett Koshan, and Jonathan Tran.
Good evening, board members.
Hey, wait a second.
Wasn't mine.
You got accompanying music.
It wasn't
mine. Okay, go ahead, sir. Sorry.
Good evening, board members. I'm going to continue on with the resolution. My name is Edward Camargo. The resolution in this part reads, now therefore be it resolved that the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education hereby finds and determines as follows. 1. Adopt the foregoing recitals as true and correct and incorporates all determinations and findings therein by this reference. 2. Approves the neighborhood school recommendations as presented to the board to keep Clayton B. Wire, Collins P. Huntington, Fruit Ridge, Joseph Bonheim, Maple, Mark Hopkins, and Washington open for the 2013-2014 school year. 3. Finds that the recommendations are categorically exempt from the provisions of California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, pursuant to the Public Resource Code Section 21080.18 and Section 15314 of the guidelines. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matthew Finner, and this is my line. So, decorate the superintendent to create design team for all school districts. My name is Olivia Finner, and this is my line. Further designs the superintendent to take such further actions as necessary to carry out the resolution.
Leo Bennett Koshan. Reading from the board agenda, by law, the board is allowed to take action only on items on the agenda. The board may, at its discretion, calendar an issue for future discussion. The public now waits for transparency concerning the second chance discussion on June 13th. We had an excellent example with Member Yee giving us an idea and President Cuneo placing it on the future agenda. I would like to sit and yield the remainder of my 2 minutes for the purpose of the board's discussion, but I've been asked to read a question into the record to be answered on the website, and explicitly it is, will Joseph Bonheim be given the time to create its charter school petition? The members await the answer on the website.
Are you done?
I'm waiting to see if the discussion starts, otherwise I'm meditating for my 50 minutes.
We can't have a discussion on something that's not on the agenda. You know that, Leo.
We had a discussion. I did read, but thank you for opening it up. It says the board may at its discretion calendar the issue for future discussion. It is my understanding, and I just saw it, that you can at least have a discussion about whether this will be calendared for a future agenda. That's what I'm asking you to do, to give us the transparency to at least discuss whether you'll discuss. it was important enough for the Student Activities Committee. I think it should be important enough for the District Activities Committee.
I think as I said I can answer that. We will discuss it, and we will have an answer for you on June 13th.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jonathan Tran with Hmong Innovating Politics. I just wanted to address a couple of issues in dealing with the fallout of the school closure issue. First of all, I also actually want to thank the Office of Parent Engagement for the tireless work that they're doing. But the reality is that I think the fact that they were given a very impossible task in trying to transition these 7 schools. In the previous year, that same office was given the responsibility of transitioning 1 school, and they had all hands on deck. But the reality is that resources are stretched, capacity is stretched in trying to give parents the most options and the best options available to them. In regards to some of the school site transition meetings that have taken place in the last couple of weeks, many of those school site meetings have actually taken place at the receiving schools that many of these parents are actually unfamiliar with. So the expectation for parents that are trying to transition to go to a school that's completely foreign to them without any guidance is an unrealistic expectation for parents to realize. In addition to that, each of you have made commitments to ensure that the transition process for our students would be as seamless and as harmless as possible. A month ago, HIP hosted a fallout forum in order for parents to articulate some of the problems that they've been facing that the district has not been able to address as a result of these school closures. We're continually hearing issues of lack of communication about transportation. We still hear confusion about open enrollment or being denied the access to receiving schools. We still have conversations about how the transition plans that are actually developed are so-called walking school buses. The reality is that there's still significant concerns that parents continue to have. The last point that I want to bring up, and it's particularly relevant for many of the Latino and Southeast Asian American students here at Sacramento State Unified, on April 24th, Superintendent Jonathan Raymond stood behind Governor Brown during his conversation about the new weighted formula for education funding.
We need you to wrap up.
Okay. It seems kind of contradictory because the school closures directly impacted limited English proficient, the very students that had the potential to bring in additional funds to the school district. District-wide, limited English proficient students make up 20.2% of the student population.
Thank you very much.
Of the schools closed, 39.8% of limited English proficient students were displaced.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We have item 8.0. It is a public hearing, so I will gavel it in. 8.1, we have a public hearing for the receipt and use of Tier 3 funds for fiscal year 2013-2014. It is both a conference and action item. There will be a 5-minute presentation and a 5-minute discussion. We have Mr. Ken Forrest.
President Cuneo, members of the board, Dr. Cummings, we have a very brief presentation related to an administrative item, and that is the public hearing for the transference of Tier 2 funds under the flexibility allowed under the current statutes. As you can see on the next slide, we cite the education code sections which allow the board and the district to move funds from what were formerly restricted programs or Tier 3 programs into the general fund to provide flexibility during the limited funding era. We give you a complete list of these programs with multiple year history as we go through. I need to point out a couple things. Number one, not all of the Tier 3 programs had flexibility applied to them. So the district did not move all of the available Tier 3 money into the general fund because it made a value judgment on some of the programs. In addition to that, some of the Tier 3 programs actually had additional money applied to them. So it's not a black and white issue when you compare adopted budget to expenditures at the end of any given year. So we're showing you the ending result of that through these various slides. And the bottom line is that there's only been a slight change from the 12-13 funding moving to the 13-14 funding. It actually went up slightly. As a result, we are open to questions with regard to the impact of this, but it really is designed by statute to allow flexibility use of these funds within the general fund.
Thank you. Do we have questions? We do. Board Member Rodriguez.
Are we going to take public comment before we ask our
I'm
questions?
sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you, Board Member. We have public comment.
We have 5 public comments on 8.1 from Leo Bennett Koshan, Edward Camargo, Ann Hawley, Christy Harris, and Terry Hardy.
Leo Bennett Koshan. As trustees of our public funds, I hope you ask questions such as, what are the underlying budget documents? I don't think that the public can make comments if we don't see actual budget documents. I don't like to see the board managing through PowerPoints. That's a good summary, but we need the underlying budget documents. And then secondly, though I understand the flexibility behind the Tier 1, there was a promise that districts would try to look at the underlying intent of each of these programs. You can tell by their titles, they're all very critical programs, and it's my hope that you do exercise your responsibilities to, again, ask hard questions to be sure that at the best of our abilities, we're maintaining whatever effort we can in these difficult times, not just sweeping funds and sweeping programs clean. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Edward Camargo. Simply enough, I'm up here just to ask a question that's kind of relating to this. I'd like to know, with school closures that you voted on to close 7 schools, during that presentation that was done in January and February, one of the questions was brought up that there was funding in restricted funds in restricted categories, and the question was asked if those funds would be able to be moved over into a 0000 general fund. And at that time, I believe we were told that that couldn't be done. Now I'm listening to this proposal to move restricted funds over to the general fund. And it's a quite substantial amount, which makes me wonder why you decided to close schools if you had funding available to avoid it. Simple enough. That's my question. I'd like the answer eventually, probably on the website, because I know I probably won't get my answer here. So I'll leave that up to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Ann Hawley. I'm the PTA president of Crocker Riverside, and I'm joined by incoming president Christy Harris and Terry Hardy, who is our advocacy committee chair. Due to the percentage of students who are categorized as socioeconomically disadvantaged, English learners, and students with disabilities, our school does not qualify for Title I or economic impact aid. And as you consider how the Tier 3 funds are allocated for this upcoming fiscal year, we ask that you restore funds from the School Library Improvement Block Grant to Crocker Riverside. It is one of the few funding sources for which Crocker is eligible to receive.
Good evening, I'm Christy Harris. We ask that you provide a baseline of funding to meet the needs of all students and provide the education they are entitled to. But in particular, we ask that you remember the Crocker students that currently receive no district-funded services, but who have learning challenges, special needs, and are socioeconomically disadvantaged. Please remember the 95 Crocker children who qualify for the free and reduced lunch program, the 55 Crocker students below proficient in language arts, and the 58 students below proficient in math, and the 141 identified GATE students. We respectfully request that the district take into account the actual needs of the students instead of whether a school site meets a required percentage of students in identified categories to trigger funding. Don't all students at all schools deserve a fair chance to reach their full potential? Thank you.
I am Terry Hardy. Crocker Riverside is in an unenviable position. We are the lowest funded elementary school in the district, and we have an operating budget that doesn't meet our very basic needs. We understand that the budget is fluid right now, but as you consider Tier 3 and the state budget over the next few weeks, please consider the situation of schools like ours. We need a long-term solution that helps us meet the needs of all students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it. Okay. So now we will go to board comments and questions. We have Board Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Force, for coming and presenting this to us. I didn't quite get the information when it's in the packet, so sometimes it brings more clarity when you do the presentation. So I thank you very much for that. And I apologize in advance for some of the questions that I have that you may not have the answer to. I believe I was the person who asked if we didn't have any other room in the budget to bring over restricted funds, or if there were any funds in the budget. In all fairness to you, you weren't here at that time, so you didn't provide that response. But can you tell me what happened here? How did we come about finding that we had this money in our budget and now we're making it flexible? It's a substantial amount, and I would imagine that it's kind of a build-up. So if you can kind of explain that out.
Well, if you look at the presentation, you can see that the district, starting in 2010, 2011, had 17 million, then 13 million, then 6 million in these funds. And so what happens is, as the budget from the state started to decrease, then the district, and not just this district, but almost every district in the state, started to look to the flexibility that was granted by the legislature to move restricted dollars to other programs. And obviously, many of the services which are provided under these restricted programs are important. But what happens in these tight fiscal times is that districts across the state started to focus on core and had to cut back to core. And the biggest core that we can talk about, we're going to talk about later this evening, is class size. And since compensation is 93% of our unrestricted dollars, having the ability to move restricted dollars to support the single largest expenditure in the unrestricted funds was critical to many districts to avoid even larger layoffs and even greater class sizes. And so that was a primary focus. Everyone who was dealing with that crisis in the state knew that something had to be done to support the general fund, or the unrestricted dollars in the general fund, as those dollars started to literally collapse. So, and I think Gerardo has some additional information.
Yeah, just want to add that, in 2008-9, the state cut us 20% in these programs, and they say, okay, we're going to cut you 20%, but we're going to give you flexibility. That's the year when they divide those categorical programs in Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, so that Tier 3, they make it flexible because they knew that it will be very difficult to sustain those programs by themselves. So they cut 20% those categorical programs, and they gave us flexibility for a 7-year period. And then also, in addition, they cut the revenue limit, that ADA. So that's kind of, in a way, that was a way for them to help us survive. I mean, that was in this year, and thanks God we had those money back then.
So I think one of the primary points here is that there's very little change between the last budget year and this budget year. And we show that on the last slide of almost no change. So it was an attempt to not make changes at this point in time in the budget. So that's the critical piece with regard to a decision related to this for this year. The entire budget process obviously is under review as we move forward to 14-15, because there's obviously going to be changes as has been mentioned tonight.
So if we just look at this last slide here, fiscal year 13-14 increase, the number to focus on is the one in yellow. Is that what we're approving? Is that what you're asking for the board to approve? Or are
Actually,
we approving the entire transfer of $26.6 million?
The entire transfer.
And what are we doing? I know that your report says under the financial considerations, well, actually, it doesn't explain in there. Where are we going to be placing? Let me see if I can phrase this a little differently. What are we going to be utilizing these funds for?
Right. As I mentioned before, salaries and benefits is the primary receiver of these dollars. The detail for these transactions, if I could get Gail or Kua to, what we've attempted to do in response to your requests and some other requests is to provide the detail in an easier to find place. So on our website, under About Us, we now have a section called Financial Presentations and Reports. We're filling that as fast as we can get the documents into electronic format. If you click on the 12-13 fiscal year, you'll see that there are a significant number of reports, and you can go back and look at previous budgets. We have bond documents, budget documents, the interim reports, the audit reports. So we're attempting to add that transparency which has been requested by the board and place that in a spot that's easier for the public to find, but also easier for members internal to the district to find. So again, we are somewhat limited by our software. And as we work with that software, you're going to see more and more operating reports. This is, for lack of a better term, I think Gerardo said it very well. This is the state's option to provide relief to the general fund at a time when the state could not do so. They changed the law to allow a transference of the restricted to the unrestricted.
Final question. The governor just had a press conference in regards to a surplus amount of money that was brought to his attention, and the discussion around school districts receiving these funds. How does that impact what we're being asked to approve today and in the future?
Well, obviously, we have many weeks to go before the governor and the legislature complete their process among them. So I'm not going to be premature and say we have a good idea of where the dollars will come from or what the restrictions will be. I think if you've been looking at the information, the governor tightened some of the requirements on the LCFF, the local funding control piece. He's tightening the accountability. So we're waiting to see what does the word tighten accountability mean. And that's approximately $240 million. And of the $240 million statewide, that may be good news or bad news for Sacramento City Unified, because that's a little less than we'd anticipated overall going into local control. And those were the dollars where we stood to gain the most. But some money's going back on the base. In addition to that, the critical comment that should not be missed in all of the statements being made is that he's releasing one-time money. And some of that money appears to be headed our way in this fiscal year. So obviously, one-time money in this fiscal year, the fiscal year is almost over. So it will end up in the ending fund balance. So let's talk a little bit about ending fund balance. Our ending fund balance is very close to the state minimum. Very close. That is a legally mandated 2% of projected expenditures. In addition to that, under the governmental accounting rules, we must also reserve and show the amount for warehouse inventory and revolving cash, the petty cash funds in the schools. When you put all that together, we need about 2.5%, roughly, to be legal. We are currently projecting the ending fund balance for this year to only be 3.17%. We're perilously close to not meeting our legal obligations in ending fund balance. So it would be it's bad as things seem for people, we need to put the fund balance in order. Why? Expenditures continue to increase beyond our anticipated revenues. So 13-14 appears to be balanced. We have every expectation of being able to bring a balanced budget to the board for your adoption. 14-15, hence our qualified designation, appears to be significantly out of balance, and therefore will require additional reductions. Every dollar we can put into the fund balance and not spend will prevent future cuts 1 year from now.
So to bring a little clarity in there, the it's the balance for the economic uncertainties. That counts on the balance sheet to balance out in the forecasted years, the projected years. And what does the bonds and the COPs, those fall off that budget, that budget sheet, right? Because it's not in the operational budget. It's on a different, goes over on the overview budget, correct?
Correct. The bonds are what's known in governmental accounting as a separate fund. The general fund, Fund 01 in California, is the operating fund. The general fund in California is split, and hence you will start to see always two designations into restricted and unrestricted. So the bond funds are separate. However, as you may know, the bond rating agencies look at the solvency of the overall district, not just the ability to issue ad valorem or property taxes. So our bond rating was recently lowered one level. That's not entirely bad because we went from a negative outlook to a stable outlook, which actually in the long run may help us to sell the bonds at a lower interest rate. So while it was not perfect, we rather have had the ability to go up. The direction from the Fitch rating agency was they're looking at an ending fund balance well in excess of 5%. The average ending fund balance for unified school districts in the state of California is 15.44%. We anticipate being around 3.17. We're significantly below the average.
Okay. And then, so driving off of that, the increasing of the expenditures, I know that we recently had to pull out of our general fund to pay off, or make a payment, I should say, not pay off, but make a payment on one of our bonds. But where else are we experiencing the increases in our expenditures besides salaries and benefits? Or you want to be more specific where at in salaries and benefits?
Well, salaries and benefits, and specifically benefits, are the main driver of our cost increases, but also, again, in the state of California, steps and columns, movement, are required by law, even if you have no agreement with your labor groups. If you do not pay the step and column under California statute, the first time you do pay, you're required to retro. So there's no benefit to not paying step and column. So that's an ongoing, ever-increasing expense, step and column. You might ask, well, can't we reorganize the salary chart? There's extremely limiting language in law in California that makes that very difficult to change the salary schedule. So yes, salaries and benefits are increasing. Benefits, as we know, will be affected by the Affordable Health Care Act. I do want to make a correction. We did not pay bond payments out of the general fund. We paid certificate of participation payments.
Yes, let's get that correct. The COPs.
The COPs. And the board will probably be presented, we hope within the next few months, a refinancing of that, the one issue which has got the variable interest rate, which is a significant worry at the present time.
Thank you.
We'll be bringing that to you.
Thank you for indulging my questions. Thank you.
Vice President Kennedy.
Thank you. I'm actually going to follow this up with a meeting with you and the superintendent. But I do want to bring up the issue of the equitable budgeting for school sites that some of the members of the public brought up. Aren't we working on a different system that will address this? I mean, it seems like we've been doing that for the last year or so when this issue started coming up and rolling it out. We are doing that, right?
Yes, sir, we are.
When's that expected to be rolled out?
We sent information to the software vendor who provides our business software this week. They promised us a meeting before the middle of June, end of June, that time frame, to address our specific questions related to budget and many other items, which would assist us in that. We also have an RFP out for a new student system, which also can assist us in utilizing the student data to drive allocation formulas and metrics, which can then be shared with the population and the public so we can come to agreement on what is the proper allocation methodology. One caveat. Both the federal and state governments are very, very cautious about supplanting. And so it's very true that if you have a non-Title I school, meaning you're below 50% in essence, free and reduced, the district must be very careful about providing additional general fund dollars to that school. Otherwise, we will be charged with supplanting and we can lose most of the federal or state support. So we're going to take that into consideration as we build the allocation formulas. And we also need to make sure that we're educating everyone as we go as to why it's so difficult and why those handcuffs are on the board and the administration about providing extra services which are needed without question. But if the federal government's giving money to school A, you can't increase it in school B or they'll say you're supplanting. You have to give it to both school A and school B.
Thank you.
Vice President Wu.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Forrest. So I gather then that we knew that we were sometime earlier that we were going to have to make this move to transition funds from Tier 3 to the general fund, right?
Yes, sir. We've been doing it every year.
Right. And even though you weren't here then, this move was probably anticipated when we were going through our earlier budget cycle?
Yeah, this is for the first year, in the last year, this was included part of the budget reduction. This year for 13-14, CD said you had to do a separate public hearing. So the information here was included in the budget reduction last year. Now we're doing separate. We did not discuss it before because it's the same amount that we did for this year. So we are not taking any additional funds from those Tier 2 programs for 13-14. We just the same thing that we did for this year in order to help us balance 13-14.
Thank you. So I thought that this information sounded familiar, but it didn't seem like we did it separately.
This is the first time that it's required that we do it separate.
having said all that and knowing that we were going to make the move, we could not have used this money, or could we have used this money to prevent the school closures that we were faced with earlier this year?
It's a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
So if you use this money to prevent the school closings, you would have had to take the money from somewhere else. The bottom line is this district has a structural imbalance and has had a structural imbalance basically for the last 10 years. And the fund balance, which at one point was 11.4 some odd % of the expected expenditures, is down at 3. Therefore, $40 some odd million has gone to sustain operations during these tough times, but now we're out of fund balance.
Thank you, Mr. Forrest.
Board Member Hanson.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a quick side note, I'm also concerned about having some equity of funding between the different schools, and I'll look forward to working with you and the other board members on that as the budgeting process moves forward. And secondly, just to address some of the Tier 3 funds, I think though the information was clear to me after reading it several times, it's not laid out precisely clearly, and I can understand why there's some lack of clarity from some members of the public. But we have been doing this for a number of years. This is not anything that's new. The only thing that's new is that it's now required by law for us to have a public hearing on this specific item, so it's pulled out instead of just being part of the agenda or part of the budget. So this is $26 million is not new money that just popped out of the blue or that we're moving from a restricted fund to general fund. This is exactly the same thing we did last year, except that this wasn't pulled out of the budget the previous year. So I just wanted to address that. I know, Mr. Camargo had a question about that. So this is not new money. It's money that had been part of the budget all along. And the original funding, I understand, if I'm correct, just reading the notes and being familiar with the legislative history, it was 2008 and 2009, the state legislature allowed the district flexibility to move Tier 3 money into the general budget. That's correct? So starting that point, our school district and probably all 950 other school districts in the state of California did exactly that and moved funds out of Tier 3 into the unrestricted funds of the general budget. So they were allowed to do that, correct? But we just didn't have to have a separate public hearing like we are now on this particular item. So you can actually look and see that in the 2010-2011, we pulled out $15 million and transferred it from Tier 3 into general fund. In 2011-12, we pulled out about $18.5 million. Last year we did $26 million, and this year we're doing about $26 million. So this is nothing new. So I just don't want there to be any confusion that we close schools and then miraculously we're going to swipe $26 million that we didn't have before. This was part of the budget all along. And it's nothing new. I just wanted to. Maybe you can say yes. Yes, that is. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right, great. I just want to make sure there's clarity on that.
That's correct.
Thank you. All right, that was all. I just wanted to clarify.
I might add that in the request to our software vendor, we asked for the ability to provide 3 years past and 3 years future in the budget system, so that full visibility is available to everyone.
Okay. Seeing no further questions or comments, I will move the item from conference to action. Somebody want a second? Second. All right, well, we'll go with the Vice President Wu. So we have a motion to move it in from conference to action with the second by Vice President Wu. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We are now in action. We have a motion by Vice President Wu to move the staff recommendation on this issue. We have a second by Vice President Kennedy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have Member Rodriguez is opposed. Abstentions? The ayes have it. It has been moved, and I will now close the public hearing. Item 9.0, consent agenda. We do have public comment. Absent, if we recall, 9.1G and 9.1H.
I also would like to vote on 9.1B separately. B as in boy. Thank you.
We have public comments, President Cuneo, on 9.1B, as in boy, I, and J, all from the same speaker. Would you like to have do them all at once?
That's fine, yeah.
Leo Bennett Koshan.
For 9.1B as well, remember? Oh, you did say B. I misunderstood you. All right. Thank you. Leo Bennett Koshan, 9.1B, which is the bond. Last time I asked if some of these numbers would be filled in. I'm looking at the maturity schedule. I see no numbers to tell us what's going on in terms of maturity date, principal amount, interest rates. A lot of parts are still blank in here. So I'm just wondering, how do we comment? How do we know? How do you decide? As far as I can tell, most of the blanks are blanks from last time around. I particularly call your attention to A17, which is a picture like I wish you do at all your budget hearings. You have all your prior years. You're not just looking into the future. I ask you again, why in 12-13, as we are in a budget crunch, does the supply budget go up $11 million? Why is that a priority? Why did you vote $11 million extra supply? You do not have a structural deficit if you fix that, because some years you're under, some years you're not. If you go down and look at the net increase, decrease, you will see that that's not structural. It's been a crisis. We're weathering the crisis. Things are improving. We've managed fine being very close. I'm not really happy when I hear statistics that we're close to the reserve. We're 0.28 above, which is $1 million, which is enough to keep schools open. We've managed with our low reserve. So what's the priority? To be at 4% and close schools? This money is to service children. And if you look at your actual budget documents, you'll notice a very curious factor as you now have swept all this restricted money and put it into unrestricted. Unrestricted makes a contribution of $42 million back into restricted. I'd like it posted on the website.
We could finish
Why
up,
does
please.
that happen? Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Okay, so we have...
I will move items 9.1A, 9.1C, 9.1D, 9.1E, 9.1F, 9.1I, and 9.1J.
Second.
Do we have a motion to move those items with a second from Vice President Wu? All those in favor of approving those items, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so those have passed.
Move 9.1B.
Oh, okay. Vice President Kenny moves item 9.1B with the second from Vice President Wu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have Member Rodriguez opposed and abstentions. That has been approved. We now have the two items that were pulled out earlier, 9.1G as well as 9.1H. We have public comment on those.
President Cuneo, are you going to hear the two items separately or together? We have comments on both agenda items.
Why don't we have Mr. Forrest come up and explain exactly what those items are and their purpose, and then we can take public comment and then have board conversation.
President Cuneo, Dr. Cummings, members of the board, we, on 9.1B, it's a resolution for the sale of bonds, which we had a work session on or an information session at the last board meeting.
Just G&H.
Well, you just want
Talk about
G&H.
G&H.
No, yeah, just G&H.
Sorry. Approval of class size waiver request for kindergarten. This is a administrative requirement of the state of California. Unfortunately, the district had one class one child over the class size limit this fiscal year. We found out about that about 2 weeks after it occurred. That resulted in the possibility of an administrative penalty imposed by the state of California of approximately $780,000. So there is a waiver process. Many districts apply for the waiver in advance. This district did not apply in advance because it had always been able to meet the requirement. This year we missed it for one class, one student, in roughly the over 1,200 classes the district conducts. So the waiver is an opportunity in law which allows the district to avoid that penalty. We had discussions with the California Department of Education, and they've encouraged us to file the waiver because, as I indicated, many other districts are already doing that in advance. In addition to that, the language of the collective bargaining agreement with the teachers specifically has a mention of what happens should a class go over the contracted limits or the state limits if the contract limits are not specified. When that occurs, if the teacher consents, after the first 20 days, the teacher receives an additional stipend of $90 per day that the class is over that class size. So that's this fiscal year, and that relates to the first item. The second item, at the recommendation of the California Department of Education, we are submitting a request for the second year or the next fiscal year, should that type of error occur. You might ask yourself, how can that error occur? Well, as you know, we've got an RFP out for a new student information system. Our current student information system has many significant issues associated with it. And therefore, it is not as easy or timely as it should be for us to determine when class sizes move out of the compliance area. We're only asking for the flexibility in K3 because to do otherwise would require us to go back and work with our unions. I think the most important point in all of this is we did not budget to go over these class sizes. In fact, just the opposite. Our budget methodology has not changed. It has always been and will continue to be that we staff classes in accordance with the contractual obligations that the district has with its labor groups and in accordance with state statute. We're merely asking the board to pass a waiver so that in the event we have an unfortunate occurrence like we had this year, where we have one error or two, that we address it. It is our expectation that no classes will be held above the limits and that we will remain within the contract requirements. That's how we built the budget, and that's how we intend to operate the budget.
Thank you for that. Can we have public comment?
We have 4 public comments on this item from Leo Bennett Koshan, Ann Hawley, Angela Sutherland, and Jessica Arriaga.
I would like to specifically request, unless some of the board is already informed in this esoteric area, that the specific letter from the California Department of Ed telling us they will fine us $700,000 for being one over be posted on the website. I would also like to see the formula that generates this quote of about $6,000 per ADA. I think it's important to get our facts correct. We do not receive $6,000 per ADA from California's education funding. Perhaps that's revenue limit, but we should be specific with our terms. So I'd ask that this be corrected and put on the website so that we can all learn what is actually happening, both from the California Department of Ed in terms of its rules and regs. If it's true that they're going to fine us $700,000 for one student, I'll be happy to go down there and start pounding on their doors. But I need their rule and their reg so that we can actually see where this is coming from. In my experience, usually they fine you the ones that go over, not that astronomical number. Again, we'd like to see the actual documents. Thank you. since I have a little bit more time and we're clustering, I think it's great that you've appointed Member Pritchett to the PTSA, and I'd like to invite our new business manager to follow up what's in the minutes, that an open forum be held in which the public could perhaps get some of our, quote, misconceptions cleared up. The board did calendar 2 budget sessions that have not yet been held. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ann Hawley. I'm the PTA president, Crocker Riverside. And I'm speaking on behalf of our 500 members, all of our teachers, our members of our PTA, and parents and staff. I had prepared remarks, but I just want to make a brief comment. I want to point out that in your own information that you posted on the website, it seems to give a rationale that part of the reason we need the waiver is that we're having a possibility of decrease in funding. And so I think it's a little disingenuous to say that this is just a procedural vote. And we're concerned that this would open up the door to possible class size increases for next year. It says in your own information that we may receive 10% less, or $5,213 per ADA, or $572 per student decrease in funding. And so just want to put it on the record that we very much want class sizes to remain at the current level that they are, and that we're concerned and we will be watching. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Angela Sutherland, and I have a 7-year-old daughter in 1st grade at Hubert Bancroft. She's in a general education class, and she also receives special education services outside of the classroom. I help in her classroom every week, and I see my daughter off in the morning each day, and this is what I have observed with the large class size this year. A classroom packed tightly with 32 to 34 students and cluttered with materials, barely enough room to walk around. A teacher who is doing their best, yet struggling to manage the classroom and to provide enough support for each child. A teacher very stressed and stretched beyond her comfort level. Parents correcting all of the homework and even providing the testing for the students, just so the teacher can keep her head above water. Of course, I want to help out, but at the same time, I'm wondering, does she really know how well her students are doing? Students who appear lost, no individualized assistance, inconsistent support for behavior. My daughter's report card went from all basic or proficient in kindergarten to all below basic in 1st grade. And I've seen other students who are struggling as well. Parents are struggling to connect or to have any FaceTime with their teacher. The teacher is too busy to communicate or check in with parents. Parents wondering and worrying about lots of things that they could not ask. So I ask, how is a larger class size beyond the legal limits benefiting our kids? And will this waiver open up a bigger problem than we have now? So I ask the board to consider giving more time for us as a community of parents, students, teachers, and staff to provide input and work on solutions together and not having increased class sizes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jessica Arriaga. I'm a parent of Joseph Bonheim. And to correlate with the previous parent, I also have a child who's in 1st grade who has special needs, and he has definitely received them. His teacher communicates with me on a regular basis. When you increase class sizes, that diminishes her ability to communicate with me effectively about my child's progress, his needs. And these laws are set in place. There's a reason why the law provides this fine when you go over these limits. These limits are put in place to ensure that we are providing an environment where the class size can support a quality education and a great teaching environment. And my concern, like all the other parents, is by signing this waiver and allowing yourselves to possibly go over this limit, you are also possibly deterring the ability for the parents, or actually the teachers, I'm sorry, to effectively provide this quality education that I ask for and all parents do. So I just am very concerned that you're going to go ahead and proceed with something that would prevent a law that's in place to protect our children and making sure that they get the education that they deserve. So I do want you to really think about that, because we're going to be watching this. And I really hope that your intentions are as if in the event one extra child is in there, that's what this is in place for. But if we come back and we have to revisit it where that's not the case and you're going every school, this is K through third. These children don't have the behavioral instruction as of yet. They don't know how to follow directions. It's critical for them at this point. And when you put too many of those children together, they start to overrun the teacher. So please think about that. Thank you.
We have Board Member Pritchett.
Thank you, President Cunyo. Mr. Forrest, can you tell me whose responsibility it is to tell the district staff when they have too many kids in their classroom?
Well, in this district, the budget office is the one that monitors the daily attendance and enrollment. And so it's our responsibility to notify the instructional side of the house if we encounter that. As I've mentioned, we have a less than perfect student information system. I can tell you that in my previous district, I received by email, as did every administrator in the district, a class size report every single day for every class, both the summary for the school by grade and every single class. To obtain that from our current system is all but impossible. And so as we are working to put in a new system, obviously that's one of the reports which we would expect on a daily basis.
You say less than perfect. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more? Like, do we not know how many kids are at our schools on a daily basis?
Our current student information system vendor went through bankruptcy. The source code was not owned by the district, and therefore we have no rights to modify or to fix errors in the source code. The rights to that code were acquired by a different company. And so therefore, without substantial charges, the company has refused to assist us in making modifications to the software, which would allow this. So I could spend a lot of time telling you all the areas of deficiency. This same software you might hear is working in a neighboring district whose IT staff is maybe 5 times greater than ours. And therefore, they have the internal expertise and also purchased the source code when they went to that system. So they have the ability to fix it. San Diego Unified had the same software we had. They have recently gone through an acquisition process, and they're changing. So we're following a little bit slower than they were, but the RFP is on the street, and the calendar which we've asked for is full implementation by fall of 14 for scheduling and these types of reports with additional features by the following fall of 15.
All right. I'm really excited that we're getting new software that will be able to tell us it, but the answer to this question seems so simple to me. Like, wouldn't the administration know? Wouldn't the teacher know in the classroom that they had an extra student and be able to report it? that day?
Well, we found out 2 weeks after the fact.
Because it wasn't reported from the administration?
We found out 2 weeks after the fact. It doesn't, I can assure you that we're going to be monitoring very closely this coming year. And I think that this has brought heightened awareness to just how dangerous it can be to not follow both the contract, the intent of the contract, and the statutes.
But we were in breach of contract.
Not contract, statute in this case, because it was K3. So this happened to be part of the statute, and which is specified in Ed Code. And the problem with the calculation is that when you violate the statute, it's a big penalty. They don't just charge you for the one child for the one class. They drop back, reduce the class size by 2, and then you have to go through and recalculate all the class sizes that were over the new lowered limit. And that's how you result with such a substantial penalty.
So are you asking the board to approve a blanket increase?
We are not. We have no intention of increasing class size whatsoever. The budget is built on the same class sizes that we had this year, and the staffing has been allocated on the same class sizes.
Because my fear is this, that we approve something like this and we're opening that door. Even though we say we're not going to be increasing those class sizes, but next year when that comes about and we have extra kids that we need to put in, we're like, oh, well, we already had this waiver. We can slip them in there technically. But what you're saying is that's not going to happen.
Not only will it not happen, but with the exception of the K3, which is allowed by statute, all other grades must be negotiated. We would be in violation of contract, and the district has both a legal obligation and a contractual obligation to go to the labor unit and say, we need to raise class size. So it's a negotiated item. It's in the contract. So the board would have to vote to take action in either case. The board is adopting a budget with the class sizes and the parent or pupil-teacher ratios calculated at the level of the 12-13. We are not proposing a budget that would raise those. So in either case, the board would have to vote in public session to do this.
And then you would have to go back to the union.
In all but K3, we would have to go to the union first
Okay.
to negotiate.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Vice President Kenny.
Yeah, I mean, the same question. I mean, you say in all but K3, but we're only approving K3.
We're only approving K3 because to do anything other than K3 requires a negotiated agreement.
Got it, okay. But so it wouldn't necessarily require a negotiated agreement, but it still requires a vote of the board to do it.
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay, just I think you're getting the gist that that might be a completely different conversation if it comes down to that.
I don't think you're going to get that proposal from the administration.
Thank you very much.
Board Member Rodriguez.
Just one question. Prior you spoke about having a system that was not adequate for our district, and that's how we ended up in this situation. And then you said later in response to Member Pritchett's question that it will not happen. What are you putting into place that it will not happen? With the new computer system, that's not going to happen like next month. So what are you putting in place to ensure that we will not go and be in the situation where we're having to do a waiver today?
I think there are a couple things that I've already thought of. Lacking a good computer system. Communication is key. I want to work with the Teachers Association to basically say we need to do a communication directly to all classroom teachers and also to administrators to make sure that those class size limits are well known and that the reporting procedure is immediate, that administrators and teachers in the classroom know if a student shows up in your classroom and they're going to be enrolled in that class, therefore attending that class, it's very important that you notify us immediately so that the instructional chain of command can take the appropriate action.
Very good. So, and then just a statement. I do believe in doing the waiver for the one class that went over. I would like to see that if we were to need another waiver, that we wait until we get the leveling done and then we ask for a waiver, so we have a true sense of which classes and which school sites are in need of this waiver. I feel uncomfortable right now approving something that has an unknown, and especially when we're making a commitment to stay at the 32-to-1 ratio. So that's my comment.
Board Member Hanson.
Thank you. I'm also happy to hear that we're correcting and updating our computer systems. It's clear. I know you and I have talked about it, and that you've discussed it before with us, that we really need to do that, bring it in the 21st century. It gives you more transparency, what's happening, us and the public. So that's critical. And I know you're working on it as fast as you can. Fall of 2014 sounds a ways away, but I know how those things work. And just please move expeditiously and make sure we buy source code and do the things that we probably should have done the first time around. Reading this, I had the same concern that one of our public speakers had, that it's written in a way that I know we say we're not going to, but it says, due to continued shortfalls, the district's requesting the authorization to increase class sizes to 34-to-1. We are specifically putting that in our request. I am similarly uncomfortable with that. What I'd like to do, because I think this needs to be rewritten, I can't vote for it the way it is today. I'd like to have an ability to spend some more time talking about it internally and with folks in the public that are concerned as well. And I'd like to move that we move this to the next agenda in 2 weeks so we can have a little bit more time to work on this. I'd like to make that as a motion to move it to our next
The only thing
agenda.
I want to say is for 12-13, we have a penalty of $780,000 possible. And these draft agendas were sent to the CDE, and they ask, because you are giving us permission to apply for the waiver by doing this, and I will say this agenda to CDE, and by doing that, they say the language that they say is very highly that you get a yes approved, and we don't question you 95%. That's what they say. So we send this, we change the language, but you said you had to make it more clear that in case it happens. So that's why the language is included. So then the top, the recommendation, that's what it says, but that kind of what we explain in the body, what are we doing it. At least I ask you approve the grades 1 to 3, because we have a penalty for this year. For the kindergarten, we don't. That was just a recommendation of CD that we did it just in case that happens. Groups of students don't come sometimes in a group of 32 or 31 in each, and sometimes it's better for the student to stay in one class so they don't get transported to a different neighborhood, stays where they're.
I understand that. Let me just, I think let me clarify them, because we're on 9.1G, so we're only talking about the kindergarten waiver here, which is for 2013,
Board Member
2014.
Hanson, we're speaking about both.
So we're on both items at this time? All right, well then let me clarify my motion to address that legitimate concern. I would request that we move 9.1G, which is just in kindergarten, to the next agenda, and I'd like to make an amendment to 9.1H that would leave the 2012-2013 waiver as part of the recommendation, but that we take out the 2013-2014 and move that to the subsequent agenda as well, so we can discuss that in a couple weeks and have a chance just to make sure that everyone's on the same page with this. That way we don't inhibit the ability of the district to do the right thing. There was an error that happened, and we can fix that, and hopefully CDE grants us the waiver, and so we don't have to pay the fine. But I would like to split the 9.1H, the grades 1 and 3, so we take out the 2012-2013 and separate it from 2013-2014.
I will second that motion.
Okay. So we have a motion by Member Hanson. We have a second on the floor. We do have two comments up here. That we have Vice President Kennedy.
Yeah, I was actually ready to second the motion, but I wanted clear, understanding here. Does bifurcating the two does that diminish our chances of the CDE allowing, and or I should say, avoiding the 700 plus?
She said to me, you can do it 12, 13, but most districts do it for next year too, so you don't have to do this.
Okay, so it's more of a convenience factor. So
yeah,
okay.
for
I got
that's what you say. So we have to do it again next year, and we are in the same situation.
Thank you.
So seeing no other comments, the motion on the floor by Member Hanson is to approve the submission of the class size waiver request for grades 1 through 3 for fiscal year 2012-2013 only. We have a second by Board Member Rodriguez. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That has been passed. The issue of 2013-14 and its waiver requests for kindergarten and 1 through 3 will be brought back. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have 10.0, Board Workshop Strategic Plan and Other Initiatives. 10.2, Early Childhood Development. It's an information item. Dr. Alvin Roberts, Wanda Roundtree. It's a 40-minute presentation, 20-minute discussion.
Good evening, Board President Cuneo, board members, and Interim Superintendent Dr. Cummings. Tonight, we are pleased to bring to your attention our Early Childhood Development Program. Joining me are Dr. Roundtree, Interim Director for the department. We have two of our teachers with us tonight, Elaine Hill and Susie Saraba, two of our instructional aides, Lala Alvarado and Lizette Chavez. We had two parents. One was not able to come tonight, but we're looking forward to hearing from parent Steve Wormley and one of our coordinators, Tammy Sanchez. Knowing that 95% of a child's brain is developed between the ages of birth to 5, the district recognizes that these formative early years are essential for laying a foundation for a solid base for students to learn. As such, child development represents the beginning point of the Sacramento City Unified School District's learning continuum to achieve the goal of all students being college career ready as reflected in our strategic plan, particularly Pillar 1. To that end, tonight, our presentation on early childhood development in Sac City will focus on 3 essential components. First, we will share the program overview, addressing the intellectual, emotional, physical, and social development of our preschool students. Next, we will address the infrastructure of support needed to ensure quality learning takes place in and outside of the classroom. And lastly, we will describe the measures being used to determine the effectiveness of the program. At this time, Dr. Roundtree will come and expound upon these 3 components.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roberts. Good evening, Board President Cuneo, board members, and Interim Superintendent Cummings. Tonight, it affords me a welcome avenue to highlight some of the programs and services offered to Sacramento City Unified School District's youngest students and their families. SCUSD's Child Development Program serves approximately 2,800 children annually. Approximately 1,400 of these children are served through our Head Start and Early Head Start program, and about 740 children are served through the state and funded programs. CHDA Child Development has 82 classrooms that are dispersed throughout 47 Sac City Unified School District sites. As expected, child development classrooms are reflective of the ethnic, linguistic, and cultural diversity that exists in our school district. Many of our youngsters come to us from households that speak 2 to 3 languages. In child development, we firmly believe that diversity facilitates community. The distinct ethnic, cultural, and linguistic differences that exist among our educators Children and their families are instrumental in fostering a community of mutual respect and numerous opportunities for learning. Furthermore, it is important to note that the majority of the children and families that we serve are from low socioeconomic strata, which I might add, by no means determine their ultimate destiny in life. Eligible families participating in the Child Development Program are afforded a variety of options to meet their child care needs. For example, Head Start offers part-day, center-based services to eligible families, as well as home-based services. Many child development children also participate in our WRAP option, which entails the blending of Head Start and state funds in an effort to provide children 6.5 hours of care daily. That's 6.5 hours. Finally, children's centers provide extended care for children up to 10 hours a day in order to accommodate the increasing needs of parents entering the workforce, pursuing training programs, and higher education. One essential element of effective practice in ensuring appropriate is ensuring appropriate adult-child ratios in child development programs. The ratios indicated in the current slide are in accordance with state and federal licensing standards. Child development adult-child ratios facilitate developmentally appropriate practice, differentiated instruction, small and large group learning, and most importantly, effective supervision of children. In addition to very low adult-child ratios, Child Development is pleased to share that children participating in our program are provided consistent caregiving through careful planning around transitions for children and minimal staff attrition. Before addressing child development curricular programs, it is important to underscore the need for curricular approaches to be holistic in scope, meaning teachers' interactions with youngsters must encompass the whole child. To this end, child development classrooms are well-provisioned learning environments. Not only are our children's environments well-stocked with the latest instructional materials and equipment, child development maintains a hyper-focus on ensuring that environments are physically safe for children, emotionally nurturing, and intellectually stimulating. Hence, the program utilizes a compendium of scientifically research-based curricula that have been proven effective at ensuring that children acquire the knowledge and skills needed for academic success in their schooling trajectory. Child development curricula focus primarily on math, literacy, and social-emotional concepts that will provide children with a firm foundation needed to grapple with the rigors and challenges of the Common Core state standards in advanced grades. Our program is also aligned with the district's K-6 curriculum, Head Start school readiness goals, and the California Preschool Learning Foundations. Instructional approaches utilized in child development provide optimum learning for children in all domain areas. Hence, an inquiry-based methodology coupled with a thematic approach is used by teachers to deepen children's learning. Furthermore, while teaching staff recognizes that human development is sequential and orderly, they also are very well aware of the fact that children's acquisition of skills and knowledge at various developmental phases happens at their own pace. Therefore, child development provides differentiated instruction for all children, which is clearly delineated in their individual development plan. It is the district's belief that young children ought to be assessed early and often in order to ensure that they meet critical benchmarks. The program administers a variety of screeners and developmental assessments, including a home-based assessment instrument to determine children's developmental progress over time. In addition to child progress data from formative and real-time assessments, ongoing analyses of work samples included in children's portfolios provide teachers with valid information relative to student gains. But young children's individual and collective growth is inextricably linked to teacher instructional practices, classroom management, and the overall climate of the preschool classroom. Hence, data from infant and toddler and preschool classroom rating scales are analyzed in conjunction with data derived from children's individual progress to determine overall program efficacy over time. At this particular juncture, I wish to highlight some of Child Development's signature programs, which include the following: balanced literacy, early numeracy, health and nutrition education, inclusive practices, and social emotional learning. With regard to balanced literacy, Child Development teachers have been engaged in extensive professional learning, exploring the critical foundations of early literacy development in young children, which are alphabet knowledge, that is the recognition of alphabets, oral language development, and phonemic awareness. Such laser-like focus on these critical aspects of early literacy development will aptly prepare our teachers for the formal launch of the balanced literacy approach in child development classrooms. Here I wish to highlight one very crucial fact. The implementation of balanced literacy in child development classrooms will ensure curricular alignment with the district's kindergarten to grade 6 literacy program. In the area of numeracy, teachers have been engaged in a series of professional learning related to children's numeracy development, with the most recent event focused on providing preschool teachers with a comprehensive overview of the Common Core standards for math and sample classroom activities that are aligned to the math practices included in the standards. Particular focus for child development teachers is to assist children in developing a deeper conceptual understanding in critical numeracy areas such as cardinality, conservation of number, and one-to-one correspondence. While the statement, "children must be healthy in order to learn," might appear a bit cliche, it is nevertheless very, very true. You might recall my emphasis on the need to teach the whole child. Hence, one particular foci for the program has been in the area of boosting children's and their families' health and nutrition status, especially in the light of the fact that childhood obesity in our nation is at epidemic proportions. To this end, under the leadership of a registered dietitian, Child Development has launched 2 pilot projects, Let's Eat Right Now and Preschool Shine. In addition to the ongoing monitoring of children's heights and weights, nutritional challenges, and medical allergies by child development nurses, children as well as their parents engage in cooking classes and demonstrations aimed at introducing them to a variety of healthy fruits and vegetables, some of which, I might add, are unfamiliar to some of our children and their families. Furthermore, Child Development continues to work very closely with nutrition services to ensure that foods offered to children are not only appropriate from a developmental perspective, but responsive to children's ethnic and cultural food preferences. Child Development is also very proud of the close partnership that it shares with the Special Education Department in an effort to provide a range of services to children with mild to significant disabilities. One aspect of this partnership is the implementation of inclusive practices. Within these contexts, which includes 9 classrooms throughout the school district, teachers from both the Child Development and Special Education departments work collaboratively to plan and implement lesson plans in order to ensure that all children are successful. Lastly, but certainly not least, Child Development has been engaged in an all-and-out effort to ensure that the social, emotional climate of preschool classrooms is exceptional. Through teachers' effective use of the range of social emotional strategies aimed at bolstering children's ability to self-regulate and to increase their problem-solving abilities in social contexts, many of our classrooms have become more manageable and conducive to rapport building among and between teachers and their students. It is important to note that at any grade level, the collateral benefits of a positive classroom environment are increased learning opportunities and experiences for all children. Furthermore, recognizing the role of the child's family as the primary socializing entity for the child development teachers work very closely with parents to ensure continuity in the realm of social emotional learning for youngsters. The district maintains the position that effective teachers ought to be devotees of lifelong learning. Thus, ongoing professional learning for child development leaders, teachers, and support staff is critical to our work because of its impact on increased child outcomes. Rejecting the old paradigm, which included a one-shot professional development experience for staff to learn a novel concept or to implement a new curricular approach, child development professional learning experiences on any given topic occur monthly and are extended over several months, allowing numerous opportunities for the staff to revisit concepts and to deepen their understanding for successful application and implementation of new concepts and instructional strategies in the preschool classrooms. Child development professional learning also involves book study. Child development staff is currently reviewing the text No Limits to Literacy for preschool English learners. As indicated in the slide, staff's professional learning has centered on topics related to preschool literacy development, inclusive practices, and effective teacher-student engagement. Recognizing the negative impact that teaching in isolation can have on student outcomes and achievement levels, child development leadership is committed to ensuring that teachers are offered a range of instructional supports, which include ongoing technical assistance from a well-qualified and knowledgeable cadre of resource teachers, job-embedded coaching, and opportunities for collaborative planning. It is almost impossible to quantify but the amount of time that resource teachers expend in terms of offering support to our teachers, and they also serve as models and teacher exemplars. Early in my presentation, I spoke about appropriate adult-child ratios as being one important essential element of good programming for young children. However, another essential element of program efficacy is the successful engagement of parents and the community in the execution of the preschool program. Parental and community engagement, as opposed to the mere involvement of these stakeholders, speaks to a level of interaction with and between stakeholders and child development staff that engenders ownership and sustained participation over time. Parents who are members of our Head Start Policy Committee, the Parent Advisory Committee, and those who regularly attend classroom committee meetings are granted opportunities to weigh in on matters related to the fiscal and programmatic governance of the child development program. Child development social workers provide children and their families a range of social services, supports, and interventions. Furthermore, through child development's active participation with community-based agencies, such as the Child Abuse and Prevention Center, which works in conjunction with our program to help stave off child abuse and neglect among our service population, and the River Oaks Center for Children, which provides crucial assistance to families with children manifesting social, emotional behaviors and disorders and/or mental health problems. Child development has been successful at leveraging available community resources in order to address the presenting needs of our children and their families. Child development is most proud of its special projects that are implemented during the course of the school year. Raising a Reader, which is a family literacy program, encourages parents to become partners with child development in promoting children's early literacy development. Children and their families take home weekly backpacks with new books, and parents also attend family literacy workshops, which are offered on a quarterly basis. As school board members, I know that you're already familiar with Child Development's annual School Readiness Fair. This event, which is targeted to families and children between the ages of 0 and 5, provides a range of free services to participants, such as immunizations, developmental, hearing, vision, and dental screenings, etc., as well as specific information for families about transitioning their children to kindergarten. Child Development's Summer Kindergarten Readiness Academy targets 5-year-olds who have had minimal to no formal preschool experience. The academy provides youngsters a jump start, if you will, a unique opportunity to garner the necessary skills and knowledge base that will allow them to fare well in kindergarten. These children are given a gift of time and a chance to start out on an equal playing field as their age mates who have had anywhere from 2 to 3 years of a quality preschool experience. And lastly, parents are provided numerous opportunities to participate on workshops that run the gamut from early literacy development to helping children to self-regulate, and from budgeting personal finances to cooking and to eating healthy foods. To measure program effectiveness, Child Development uses a plethora of significant data derived from classroom observations, student work samples, proficiency and growth measures, plus a range of stakeholder feedback. To conduct observations, the program utilizes the Desired Results Developmental Profile, which assesses children's performance in 7 domain areas. These areas are cognitive, language and literacy, self and social development, mathematical, health, physical, and English language development. Data gathered are used to determine children's progress and programmatic changes. Child portfolios, which include a variety of children's work products over time, provide important qualitative information relative to their progress and are used to determine modifications to the instructional design and delivery. The Desired Results Developmental Profile for preschool is also used to measure proficiency and growth. The tool is administered to our children in Head Start 3 times yearly and twice yearly for children enrolled in the state program. The tool is both formative and summative, since teachers use the data to differentiate instruction for youngsters and to determine educational trends at the classroom level that necessitate specific modifications in lesson planning. Summative data derived from the instrument are used to drive child development, professional learning, and program planning. Children's performance on the DRDP is on a continuum that includes 4 levels: exploring, developing, building, and integrating, with integrating being the highest performance level a child can attain in any given domain. The next 3 frames will provide you with just a snapshot of data results regarding children's progress in 3 DRDP domains: language and literacy, mathematical development, and self and social development. As you can glean from the current slide, data indicate significant growth in 2 performance levels from the fall to the winter. Results indicate that children demonstrated a 12.4 increase in on the building level, and a 10.2 increase in integrating in the area of language literacy from the fall to the winter. Still speaking to proficiency and growth, this next slide indicates similar findings. Children demonstrated a 15.4 increase at the level of building and an 8.3 increase at the level of integrating in the area of mathematical development. And lastly, in the area of self and social development, data indicate similar findings. Children's self and social development growth indicated a 12.4 increase at the performance level of building and a 12.8 increase at the level of integrating during the fall and winter assessment periods, respectively. This last measure of effectiveness provides you with qualitative feedback from one of our very significant stakeholders, and those are our parents. Families had this to say regarding their engagement in child development, health, and nutrition activities. Make these classes available next year. I am a mom of 3, but I am not a good cook, so these nutrition classes have helped me to learn. And then one other statement. I was introduced to greens that I never knew about, like kale. At this point, I will turn the microphone over to program stakeholders who will share their reflections.
We'll begin with our parent.
Hi, I'm Steve Wormley at Susan B. Anthony. The dietitian comes by every week or so, and we have a cooking class, and it helps me out with my vegetable cooking because I'm a meat and potatoes man. And I usually feed my daughter, French fries and stuff like that. It's a simple meal. But since I've been going to Susan B. Anthony, the dietitian has showed me a lot of different vegetable type meals to fix. And I've been doing well at it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Lizette Chavez. I have worked in the Child Development Department for 10 years as an instructional aide. Through the years, I have experienced how important and helpful our program is. It's not just about ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, but it's giving them a beginning experience of what school is. Our children come into the program not recognizing their name, and by the end of the school year, they are not only recognizing their name, but are able to write their first and last name. Our children are also given an exposure of socialization with other children their own age, as well as other cultures. Our parents also socialize with the other parents. Our children are given the opportunity to interact and be able to focus more on their play at their age, but at the same time, they are able to do all the stuff that is being required. Our program also provides our families with many resources from our communities, such as the nutrition classes, job opportunities, health information, and support in pursuing their own education. Our program also invites our parents to volunteer in their child's classroom, making separation between child and parent an easier transition. For these reasons and more, our program is the essential beginning to being college and career ready for their future and ours.
Good evening, board members. My name is Lala Alvarado, and I started as a parent 23 years ago with this program. And they had offered some instructional aid classes for parents, and I took the classes. And when a job opportunity was, presented, I applied and I got hired. So I've been working with the Child Development Program for 22 years as an instructional aide. And the reason that I continue is because I see that we meet the criteria for that high quality care. And it starts up how our program has set up the program. And it starts with those adult to child ratios, the qualifications of the staff, the stability, the quality and quantity of the materials and equipment that we have for the children, and the space that we have for the children in our classrooms, and the interactions between the adults and the children. We impact these children's lives on a day-to-day basis. We make these children feel welcome when they come into our classes. They have a sense of belonging, they're accepted, and we respect them as individuals. And the activities that we provide for them have to be meaningful, exciting, engaging, and challenging. We service the children as a whole, and this is where their parents come, and we include them with numerous family contacts and parent meetings that we do. And the parents, we accept them, we respect them, and we also respect their values and goals that they have for their children. The community benefits from programs from our program, and our parents benefit from the community resources that are available for them. The parents need a service, and we look into the community to find that resource so that we can have the parents utilize it. And this is how, whether it's a benefit that's going to be short-term or long-term, we find and seek these resources for the families. Our colleagues, my colleagues, support me, accept me, and respect me. Our management, and administrators and directors, they respect me, they support me, they accept me, and they trust me as I trust them. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Krista Mahoney, and I am one of 3 itinerant aides working one-on-one, sometimes one-on-2 with children with special needs and/or behavior problems. These children can be disruptive to other students, distracting them from learning, and physically aggressive to students and staff, hitting, kicking, and in some cases, throwing chairs on teachers. Their hours are getting ready to be reduced, and other children are starting to avoid them. This is something we don't want to happen because we know how important friendship is to these children. We come in to help them learn the schedule, class expectations, recognize and express their feelings, teach them friendship skills, anger management steps, give them positive attention, and positive descriptive acknowledgement. All of these strategies help not only the children we are working with, but all of the children in the classroom. Now, instead of being a concern, these children are enjoying successful and fun days at school. Building these social emotional foundations better prepare them for kindergarten and subsequent grades, ensuring that they are ready for college and a career. Without one-on-one aids, these at-risk children would not get the support they need to be successful in school and in life. And it's just one of the many services we offer to our children and families to help them in this. Thank you for taking the time for listening.
Good evening, board members. My name is Elaine Hill, and I am a Head Start state teacher for the Child Development Department. I started working with this district 10 years ago, but actually my first overview of what child development has to offer came by way of me as a parent. I was a foster parent of 2 special needs children, and one of which had an IEP through the Child Development Department. And so through that experience as a parent, I came to see the wealth of resources made available to parents and their families. And I was so impressed and I was so affected by the level of support that I wanted to join this team. And so the teacher of my child at that time encouraged me to further my education and also to become a preschool teacher. And so I did. We set out a plan, and I returned to school and obtained my degrees as well as my credentials, and then I returned as a teacher. And so here I am 10 years later, and I'm happy to have affected the lives of upwards of 600 or more children and their families, and I've seen the results on many levels. And as you can see from Dr. Roundtree's eloquent presentation, I am now on the other side of the table supporting families, so I'm very happy to be a part of this team. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Susie Saraba, and I'm a teacher with the Child Development Department. I teach the state preschool and the Head Start Full Inclusion over at Hiram Johnson. I'm currently in my 16th year of teaching, and I decided to become a teacher because of the fact I love working with children. I wanted to teach them concepts, and I wanted to watch them utilize and grow with those concepts. They're little sponges that just absorb everything that you teach them. And it's wonderful to watch them as the little light bulb starts to go off over the course of the months while they're in your classroom. And they're so willing and eager to learn, and not only do they want to learn, but they want to please you in the process. My personal goal as a teacher in the Child Development Department is to make sure that their social, emotional, cognitive, and physical needs are met on a daily basis. And that's something that I make sure I try to do with every child that's in my class, whether it's in my morning class or my afternoon. And I want to make sure that school is a positive experience for them, because we're the first school experience that they have in their lifetime. And some of them have never been away from mom or dad. So not only are we teaching the children, but we're also teaching the parents as well. What I also would like to do is to make sure that school is a safe place and that it's a positive learning environment for them as well as their families. I truly believe that I am building a strong foundation for academics and life skills that will hopefully carry them into their college years, considering that's what we as a school district would like to see them eventually achieve, is a college education. I never want to leave a child behind. I know our district never wants to leave a child behind. That's why I feel child development is a very important foundation in that learning curve to get them to the point where they need to be at. I would like to believe that I've made a difference in their lives, and I've made school a positive experience that will grow with them and their family for years to come. Thank you very much.
Good evening, board members. I'm Tammy Sanchez, and I'm a coordinator in the Child Development Department. 25 years ago, I was a working mother, and I needed a safe, nurturing place to send my elementary child before and after school. So I picked up the phone and I called Sacramento City's Child Development Department. The interesting twist to this story is that my daughter didn't get into the program because they were full. They put her on a waiting list, but ultimately it resulted in a job for me. I'm standing before you now, 25 years in the Child Development Department, and I'm pondering what the most important thing is to tell you in this limited amount of time we have. I think what I really want to do is simply ask you to join me in thinking about what happened today in our early childhood programs. Today, 300 child development employees, teachers, aides, central office staff, managers, nurses, social workers, and support staff all got up bright and early and went to work with a clear goal in mind. Today, 147 infant and toddlers received research-based experiences designed to help them reach their maximum developmental potential. Today, 1,876 preschool students participated in school readiness activities designed to support the development of their reading, writing, and math skills. These children engaged in the important work of learning to follow routines, interact positively with their peers, problem solve, and make independent choices. Today, 450 elementary children had a safe place to go after school. They received homework support, and they had opportunities to participate in extended enrichment activities. Today, a large number of parents were able to go to work, go to school, and training programs because their child had a safe, nurturing, and educationally rich place to be. Today, many parents volunteered in their child's early education classes, and they learned how to support their child's success and how to become an advocate and a partner in their child's education. As a result of the programs that were provided today in Sacramento City's Child Development Department, 2,500 young children are well on their way to becoming lifelong learners, and they are one step closer to becoming college and career ready. Thank you.
Before we turn it over and entertain questions and hear from the public, I would like to acknowledge the team that is here, the people behind the scenes. So our child development team, parent, aides, coordinators, whatever the position are that you serve, would you mind standing, please, so you may be recognized? Thank you for being here and thank you for what you do. At this time, that is the close of our presentation, and we welcome your questions.
Thank you. We have one public comment.
Public comment from Leo Bennett Koshan.
Leo Bennett Koshan. Child development is indeed the foundation. You heard key words. Words like adult-child ratio, engagement beyond involvement, opportunities for parents to weigh in, the critical need for sufficient space, the need for stability, focusing on the whole child. Tomorrow, the schools that you have targeted will not experience those words. Next year, the receiving schools will not experience those words as they get pushed beyond the capacity they've ever had in 10 years. Why can't child development programs that you've heard be part of what don't be skipped? We skip schools with child development programs. It's more important to keep small high schools, Waldorf schools, schools that may have long-term development in a year or two, schools that are going to have construction next year, schools that are already priority schools. Child development is a priority. The research will show that it fades, unfortunately, as these students move into public education. And there's many reasons why, primarily because our receiving public education system doesn't build on the child development values that have been shared about stability, about engaging parents, making sure they buy into the decisions that are made, and critically, that smaller schools, smaller class sizes, way below the 33 that's factored into this closure process, happens. You are creating holes throughout this community through which these children will fall. And you have been shown over and over again that the once a month transition process, why can't it at least be twice a month, is full of holes. Child development is something that goes on and on. Build on this foundation.
You could finish up, please.
Don't destroy it.
We have Vice President Kennedy.
Yes. Hello. First of all, anybody who has spent any time in a kindergarten class the first week of school understands the importance of early childhood development and education. You can just observe the children and you can tell who's been through it and who hasn't, and who's ready to learn and who isn't. So, it's vitally important. I've got a couple specific questions. So Dr. Roundtree, any relation to Ward by any chance? Ward Roundtree?
I'm sorry.
Are you related to Ward Roundtree by any chance?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. It's not a common name. You have on slide 5, you have the percentage of children based on ethnicity, right? And you talked about we do have efforts in English language learning. Do we have, because for example, 43% here for Hispanic, how many of our teachers in these programs are bilingual.
Many of our teachers are bilingual. They are clearly reflective of the service population. That is something that is very evident in the child development classroom. I don't have any data here right now with me in terms of the ethnic breakdown of our teachers and our instructional aides and other staff, but clearly they are reflective of our service population.
And you remind me when you say you don't have the data, it was a good PowerPoint and a good staff summary. Do you have a report like what you just gave that has more information in it and more specifics?
Yes, yes, I do. I can get that.
If the board could get that, that'd be great. Because I'd like to, I mean, what you said was far beyond what we have in front of us. It's all good stuff. Slides 16, 17, and 18 are the measurements. Do we have that data? Is that just like the rest of our data? Do we have all that data broken down into subgroups?
Yes, we do. We have very extensive data that we derive from our DRDPs. And so what I've shown you this evening are only 2 performance levels, but there are actually 4. And we have this data for all of the domains that I mentioned in my PowerPoint presentation. So it was language and literacy with the math that you've already seen in the self and social development, but we do have it in the area of physical health. We have information around children's cognitive development in all the 7 areas, and so we have very extensive data.
If I could get that too, that would be great. Is that right? I mean, I could get that. And it says growth percentage. Do we have targets for that? Are there?
Not necessarily. I mean, since integrating really is the most advanced level, we are enjoying the fact that we see that the kind of growth percentage in that particular area, in the 2 highest areas, I should say, building as well as integrating.
Okay. You may have said something. I looked through the report. I didn't see it. Do we do? I mean, I just don't know. Do we do IEPs?
Yes, we do. Yes, we have a significant population of preschool children with mild to significant disabilities, and we do have IEPs.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys are doing great. Oh, one more question. This is a kind of an overview. Don't please give me your whole report again, as much as I enjoyed it. But we heard that the program's been around for 20 plus years, for a long time. But I take it that because a lot of this stuff's cutting edge and innovative. What's different now than overview, say, well, you've been here 3 years maybe. What's different now than 3 or 5 years ago?
I would say 3 years ago when I arrived, we were focused more so on the compliance aspects and not very targeted when it comes to teaching and learning. And that has been a transition with the Child Development Department.
Explain to me what you mean by compliance.
So our grant has certain requirements and mandates, and we were focused more on, because we do need the funds, and we're still compliant today, but we have a more laser-like focus when it comes to teaching and learning. For example, inclusive practices, that was not a part in terms of the co-teaching, that was not a part of the implementation of child development 3 years ago. Balanced literacy approach, again, that is something new that is being done within the Child Development Department. And we're trying also to make certain that there is an alignment with the K-12 program, where 3 years ago there were 2 silos that were not really connected. And so the efforts now are to ensure that the alignment is seamless.
And would you say that, I mean, isn't it true, are we doing more measurements than we did in the past?
Yes, I was going to say that there has been a real hyper-focus on data, looking at all of the screeners that we use, the developmental assessments, the environmental rating scales that we use in our program, looking at that very carefully, peeling it back, and really drawing from some information regarding what is actually happening in the classroom, what's actually happening with individual children, with groups of children, what's happening with teacher practices. So there's been a real focus on that in child development, which I think has really been, from what I derive from my staff, a bit different than it has been over the past couple of years.
Thank you very much.
Board Member Pritchett.
Thank you, President Cunyo. Did you say that River Oaks is part of the Child Development Center?
Yes, River Oaks, one of our partners. We do partner with them to leverage.
Is that the one over on CV Circle? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, I believe so. I can double check with
Yes.
Doris, but yes.
Okay, when you said that, it kind of struck me. I'm actually really happy to hear that we are partnering with them. My son, who's 20 now, when he was a young one, I was a freshly new mother and very fragile at that time, same as he. And they took us in and treated us as such, knew we were fragile. And pulling up out there, I wasn't sure if I wanted to leave my child there, if you know where it's at. But I stayed for a week and tried it out, and I heard one of your speakers say impacting lives, impacting the children's lives. Boy, did that school ever impact his life. I would have never thought in a million years I would send my child to that school, but even to this day, when we drive down Broadway and he sees the brick buildings and the over there, he still says, "Oh, that place gives me such a good feeling." So really know that all of you guys that are doing this work, you really are impacting lives and making a difference. So
thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Rodriguez.
Thank you. In your presentation, you mentioned the balanced literacy project. Now, Head Start is a state-funded program, state-federal funded program, and the district doesn't necessarily have a say, correct, in this? Because it's like parent rent, and we have a different board on that for Head Start. We did a policy just recently, I think it was the last couple of board meetings ago, but we can't mandate what kind of programs they do in Head Start. Is that correct or no?
There are specific guidelines, certainly, that we do have to adhere to as a result of receiving funds from the federal government and certainly receiving funds from the state. But we are, in fact, an integral part of the district. And so the district does have a say in terms of where we're going. And I have to say that it is very much in line with what the state, and particularly what Head Start, has been emphasizing over the past several years. Head Start programs nationwide has placed a significant emphasis on data and evidence-based leadership, and that's certainly the direction that the district is going. And so we are very much in sync and in alignment with what is expected from our categorical funders.
I too am a parent who experienced Head Start with one of my children. So it just, she's in actually the model school for the Balanced Literacy project. So I'm very excited and happy that she's there. Actually, that both my younger ones are at that school. But I did notice a difference between her in Head Start and then her going into one of our schools. And so that's what kind of gave me the impression that there was a disconnect. I'm happy to see now there's a connection with balanced literacy now going into the Head Start program. What I saw as a parent, as a user of that system just, 5 years ago, was she had, and I'm not sure if it's because of, and I think she went to a SETA, Head Start, which is different. So she had an environment that was way different. It was very culturally sensitive. They did the nutrition. They invited the parents. They had a home-based component as well. And they really advanced the child into reading, into letter recognition, numbers, colors, all of that basic stuff. And then when she did move into kinder, it was kind of, it wasn't as advanced like I had expected it to be. So that's where I got that impression that there was some disconnect or there wasn't some linkage there. So that's why I asked that question. I'm happy to see that balanced literacy is part of that now, because I think the world of it. The other thing is, I agree with Vice President Kennedy in asking for disaggregated data. And I'd appreciate that very much. And then on the SEL, the social emotional learning, in your presentation verbally and in the board packet, you did mention that parents were utilizing these strategies at home. Can you tell me how the parents are learning about these strategies, and then what method are you measuring how effective they are implementing those strategies at home?
Well, as a child development program, of course, one of the things that we do best, I should say, is working very, very closely with parents on an ongoing basis. It is the child's first experience in a formal school setting, and the parents sometimes have trepidations, and so we engage them very carefully in the process of the child's learning. The particular strategies around social emotional learning are actually shared with parents in workshop settings. We engage them in ongoing workshops. We confer with them on a regular basis. We have, for example, in our Head Start program, 2 home visits per child, as well as 2 parent conferences. And so there's lots of engagement, lots of opportunities to talk about the kinds of strategies that are occurring in the classroom, and encouraging parents to use similar strategies. And parents desire that because they want their children to fare well in a group, which is usually their first experience in a group setting. And so they're motivated to actually utilize a lot of the suggestions and strategies that teachers share with them around the social emotional learning. In terms of determining children's success, we simply use, of course, the DRDP assessment piece. We look at the self and social regulation and how children are progressing around that. We also have another assessment tool that we use, which is an environmental rating scale that looks at teacher and interactional styles. It also looks at child-to-child interactional styles. It looks at classroom climate. And all of this data provides us with insight as to how children are faring around their social and emotional development. And of course, if we are working with the parents closely and we see that children's behaviors indicate steady progress in that area, then we can make the assumption that our close work with families certainly do benefit.
And I think the follow-up question to that would be to Ms. Olivine Roberts, or our acting superintendent, Ms. Cummings. So because we're moving toward this more intense model of SEL, what measurements do we have in place that show the parents are being followed from Head Start all the way through the educational experience here at Sac City?
Our SEL program in the district-wide is still in its infancy. So at this time, and Kua, please chime in if I leave something out, but at this time we have not defined metrics that will be used to measure the students as they progress from grade to grade. That definitely is a part of the development of the plan. We're still in our planning year. This is the first year of SEL, which is our planning year. So that will be an outcome of this year to be able to have those indicators and outcomes. Anything you need to add?
You don't want to add anything about the parent component? I mean, I know we have control of the students because we have them here all the time, but what my question was specifically about, how do we measure the parent involvement?
Again, we're in the process of developing those tools, and parent involvement definitely contributes to our child's learning, and that is one of the components that we will be adding into our measurements as well. Yeah.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you very much. Lovely presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight and for the presentation. And we don't talk about early childhood development a lot, and I was trying to rack my brain why, and I think it's mostly because of the funding mechanisms. They're grant funded and they're not budgetary, so we get little opportunity to take a moment and praise the people who do early childhood development and recognize the importance and the matriculation of our kids to college. So I just want to thank everyone for the hard work, and I appreciate the information and the presentation.
Thank you.
We have item 10.3, resolution number 2752. It's a recognition of California Day of the Teacher. Would that be Dr. Cummings? Or who's going to present this? I mean, I think it speaks for itself, but. We can.
Yeah, so we would like to just present a resolution to honor the California Day of the Teacher.
Appreciate that. Do we have any public comment?
We have one comment from Leo Bennett Koshan.
No, we don't need to read it.
Leo Bennett Koshan. I realize we're applying for a waiver after the fact. I guess having a resolution after the fact, to me, it would have more meaning if it was a resolution before the fact. It would also have more meaning if you hadn't held a special meeting to lay off some of these teachers. That if your layoff notice, even though the resolution says counselors, social workers, and teachers, lays off 19 counselors, 25 elementary teachers, and we just concluded preschool, and we're laying off 8 of those, along with 7.6 social workers. Again, I point out to you that your own board documents, your budget, second interim report, says that there is a $42 million contribution from unrestricted funds to restricted. Most districts don't run that kind of red. And I still think you need to look at why you have $20 million in supplies when every year you only spend 12. Every year your auditors fix it. I'm getting to the point, and the point is you're responsible for your budget. If you would take care of your budget, you wouldn't lay off teachers.
You're still off the topic. What does this have to do with the California Day of the Teacher resolution?
If you're done commenting on my comments, I will finish my comment. So my comment is that if you manage the budget, you could have a resolution in a timely manner that wasn't impacted by any of what I just said, and we could all celebrate the fact that, yes, counselors, librarians, social workers, and teachers touch many people with lasting effect and shouldn't experience pink slips. Thank you.
I will move the item from conference to action. Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Rodriguez to move. Yes, right? From the conference to action. Yeah, okay. from conference to action. We have a second by Vice President Wu. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we are now in action. Does someone want to? Okay, there we go. And now we have a motion to approve resolution number 2752 by Board Member Rodriguez, a second by Vice President Wu. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Resolution 2752 has passed. Item number 10.4, resolution number 2751, the transfer of 2012-2013 expenditures to Education Protection Account funds. It's a conference and action item, 5-minute presentation, 5-minute discussion. Mr. Forrest.
President Cuneo, Dr. Cummings, members of the board, before you is a resolution required under the provisions of Article 13, Section 36 of Proposition 30. To be pointed, this is accounting for accounting's sake. When they passed this proposition, they wanted to make sure that funds were only expended in certain categories. To ensure that, as stated on the second slide, they created a unique resource. A resource is an account element within the standardized account code structure for the state of California. They created resource element 1400. Thereby they said that districts must identify and the board must formally adopt the transfer of funds to fund expenditures from this resource. So as you can see, we have provided you with a list as we go through. They are very specific as to what the funds may be spent for. I want to point out that the Prop 30 funds basically ensured that dramatic reductions to the district's budget did not occur. but that they were included in the budget, and they're included in next year's budget, and there's no new money here. These are funds which the board is just reallocating in accordance with the requirements of Prop 30. As you can see, the funds may only be used for instruction, library, media and technology, ancillary services, community services, and plant services facilities. The slides that follow show you the revenue, and then so underneath what was done was we looked at the expenditures through the end of March that had occurred in the general fund, and then we made the appropriate transfers. You see a number of transfers for each of the charters which are provided because they have a different unique identifying code in the state accounting system. Then as we move through, we show you the revenue, then we show you the transfer. Notice that the transfer is in the instructional category on the charter schools, meeting the criteria outlined in the law. And we go through the charter schools, and in each case, when we say instructional activities, we're really referring to employee compensation, teacher compensation. Then when you move to the back of the presentation, the last two slides basically are the revenue and the expenses for the general fund. You can see that we're moving almost $44 million of revenue that would not have arrived if Prop 30 had not passed. And then we're moving the subsequent same total in the following categories. And again, the decision was made administratively to allocate all of these funds to teacher compensation. Questions?
Thank you. We need public comment first.
Leo Bennett Koshan.
As someone who went door to door for Prop 30, this is not accounting to me. We sold the education protection account so that you could show the public that you're protecting our schools. When we hear no new money, this is generating new money because the employment is pictures increasing, the income tax revenue, the sales class. If it's in the budget, it's a living document. We heard that over and over as it shrunk. I think we should hear it over and over as it increases. Senator Steinbach says we no longer have to stare at enormous deficits and make agonizing decisions. We can begin making up for some of the damage done. Your decision to close schools is causing damage. We have already closed 10% of our schools. Why do we need to close another 10%, bringing us to a 20% reduction? Why are we affecting all of these receiving schools?
What does this have to
They
do with the
are not
expenditures?
being protected.
You're off
The
subject again.
purpose of the Education Protection Account,
Very good.
Prop 30, was to increase the funding. We are urging you to discuss this in June because things are getting better. I heard you say, President, that you would discuss it and that you would get back to us. Well, you can't discuss it because the Brown Act doesn't allow you to unless it's an agenda item. Will it be an agenda item in June, Mr. President? You were able to present an agenda item for Member Yee. The DAC voted for this agenda item. Will you respect the DAC's vote? Hearing no answer, I feel that you are not giving our schools a second chance.
Please finish up.
Okay? I feel that you are betraying your responsibility to protect our schools.
Could you pick up your board, please? Oh, no. This is very odd.
We have one more public
We do have
comment,
one more
President Cuneo.
public comment. Yes.
From Grace Trujillo.
Grace Trujillo. Good evening, members of the board. One of the things that I think I keep on hearing is cost. Costs are going up. Maybe that was one of the reasons why they closed these 10 schools. You know, I'm trying to figure out, looking at all different sides, areas of administrative side, as well as the parent side, as well as the teachers. But I'm seeing, I guess the more I look into the budget, I see costs going up. And the higher the costs go up, you know, for benefits and all that, that's, as I said before, the benefits need to be regulated, meaning healthcare needs to be regulated. If healthcare was regulated, I don't think we would be in this situation. Because obviously, you're doing projections for the future of costs that can have a major impact on the schools. This is not just alone the schools, it's also other government agency, PERS, county, anybody that has an insurance method. My thing is to get involved. I think healthcare is one of the biggest things that's affecting our school closures probably, and the board is not listening to us. So I advise you as a team to reconsider and to look. There's other ways of working together. You could get a lot more stuff done. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Sir, could you just please take a seat? You're not going to take a seat. You're going to stand there. Really? Board Member Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Cunha.
He's not allowed.
Okay. Maybe I missed it, but why are we selecting the dependent charter schools? And it's not all of the dependent charter schools, right? Or am I wrong? No.
Yeah, they're all our dependent charters. The dependent charters are under our board, your board, so that's why we had to do those.
No. I'm saying that's not all of the dependent charters that we have in our district.
Yes, there are. It's Bowling Green, the Med, and New Tech, and George Washington Carver.
What about Alice Burney?
Alice Burney is not a charter school.
It's not a charter. Okay.
No, this is all yeah.
Interesting. Okay. But then to follow that up, then why these? Well, okay, never mind. I got that. This is that new local control formula thing where we're talking about the accountability.
Yeah, this is different. This is a specific lack in proposition theory that is under the state. The state is counting this money as part of proposition theory, so we, the districts, had to do that. So, yes. So this is different than the local control funding formula.
Could we have put this money anywhere else in the budget?
We only can put it according to the specific lines under proposition theory. It's specific. We cannot do it in administration. That's like one rule in there.
But we could have given it to other schools.
It is in our schools. This is
other ones besides these.
Right. We're not really giving it. We're just taking it from the 000 resource and moving it to resource 1400. And it's my conjecture that the state is doing this so that when all the districts report, they'll be able to add up all of resource 1400 and show this is what Prop 30 did. It saved this much in reduction in the K-12 situation.
That's correct. And we're doing it now because this is something that we just learned about a month and a half ago. They said this is a new requirement that under proposition theory that school districts need to do. So that's what we're doing.
But Code 1400 has always been there.
No, this is brand new.
Brand new.
This is a resource. This resource is a resource.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's starting for 12, 13. After proposition theory, that's how CD created under the standardized accounting structure.
And it is unique. You can only use it to classify Prop 30 money. Can't be used for other sources.
Interesting. And then how does this then correlate with the earlier item that we had about the Tier 3 flex?
It's totally separate. It's just, it's a requirement of Prop 30, and it's my understanding that what the governors may revise, which has not been adopted by the legislature, there will also be accountability in the $240 million that is scheduled to be part of the local control funding. And so we'll probably see some additional reporting requirements around when we receive those funds.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Rodriguez. Seeing no other, we have Vice President Wu.
I move conference to action.
I will second. So to move the resolution from conference to action, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Four of us up here, so it's an action item now. Vice President Wu.
Move the action.
I will second it. So the motion is to approve resolution number 2751. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have a 4-0. It has been approved. You're welcome. 11.0 Business and Financial Information Reports. 11.1, they are received. Yes, did you have a... Board Member Rodriguez, did you want to say something?
Thank you.
Did you want to say?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No problem.
My board colleague, Vice President Wu,
No
was
problem.
asking me a question. I'm sorry, and because of that, I got the wrong topic. It wasn't on business and financial. I wanted to to talk about the last board meeting. I thought we were.
12.0?
Oh yeah, we are. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, on that matter, I just want to share with the board that I am a parent of children who attend the receiving school. And just this week, this was a very hard week for me. I had to sign my children up for the lottery process for the after-school program. That's the first time myself and any parent at that school has had to go through that. And then to come to find out that there were only half of the slots that will be allocated for the children who are at this current school site, and then the other half are going to be allocated for the children who are coming in from the closed school. That is a major shift and a major change in ours.
In regard to future board?
Yes. So it's a major, I'm just trying to explain why I'm going to request what I'm going to request.
Okay.
So it is a major shift and a major change. And, I am a person, fortunately, that has resources that I can make another choice. But when I put myself in the parent shoes of the many parents from all the 7 schools that are being affected, they don't have that necessarily the opportunity to do that. And it's deeply impacting their lives to the point where I'm hearing that when they have the after-school program, it's something that the parents rely on for their children to get homework help. Parents have to work until 5, 6 o'clock at night, and so they rely on the after-school program for that. So going along with the DAC recommendation and things that came forward today in our public comment, I would like to see that resolution put onto the June 13th meeting. I will not be here that day, but I would like to see that being put onto this agenda, at least so that we can have a discussion with the public and the community that's being affected. I'm being affected, and I'm just telling you that. So I would appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you. Future board meetings today, June 13th, 2013, 4:30 p.m. closed session, 6:30 p.m. open session here at the Cerna Center. June 20th, 2013, 4:30 p.m. closed session, 6:30 p.m. open session again here at the Cerna Center. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn by Board Member Yee and a second by Board Member Rodriguez. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned.